Amidst the vast school courtyard, a dazzling magic circle blazed brilliantly, and a booming voice from the loudspeaker echoed out, announcing that today was officially the day the students would awaken and gain their classes. Standing on the stage was a fierce-looking teacher with a rugged full beard, shouting at the top of his lungs, "This is directly tied to your future destiny." It turned out to be the combat instructor, Lu Hu, who loudly encouraged them, hoping every student would be able to awaken their dream class. Right at that moment, our protagonist appeared with an impossibly cool demeanor, thinking to himself that after so many years of transmigrating here, the day of class awakening had finally arrived. He was Fang Chu, a new student at Haicheng High School. Amidst the neatly lined-up crowd, upon hearing the teacher loudly call his name, Fang Chu stepped forward and answered firmly, "Present." The dashing young man strode forward, the hem of his coat fluttering as he looked impossibly handsome. Seizing the moment, a few female students started whispering among themselves with blushing faces, wondering what class Fang Chu might awaken, guessing based on his vibe that he would definitely be a priest. Hearing this, the group of girls chimed in enthusiastically that he looked so handsome he practically had to be a priest, which made the bitter guys nearby curl their lips in disgust and scoff that looks didn't matter when awakening ultimately depended on your class, prompting the girls to immediately snap back that those guys were just green with jealousy over his looks. Tuning out the noise, Teacher Lu Hu flipped through the files and muttered his assessment that Fang Chu was the orphan of a martyr with excellent physical stats and top-tier academic scores. Stroking his beard with an appreciative smile, he thought no wonder the kid was drawing so much attention. As for Fang Chu, he calmly reached out to touch the stone altar, triggering the magic circle to emit a blinding golden light. A radiant beam of light reflected in the young man's expectant eyes. Instantly, a massive, colorful pillar of light shot straight into the sky, causing the entire school to gasp in shock at the overwhelmingly intense reaction, with someone crying out, "No way! Could the class he was awakening really be this heaven-defying?" Interspersed with crazed shrieks of adoration, proclaiming that Fang Chu was truly their ultimate heartthrob. But wait, suddenly a bizarrely eerie, dark, greenish-black energy radiated from his hand. That gloomy energy gathered into a pitch-black bolt of lightning that crashed straight down into the ground, dyeing a large portion of the courtyard space in inky darkness. Teacher Lu Hu jumped in fright, his eyes widening as he blurted out, "He actually triggered a full-scale heavenly phenomenon. What kind of terrifying class did this brat awaken?" Phantoms of countless evil demons, armored skeletons, and reapers holding scythes suddenly manifested throughout the space amidst an eerie green mist. Standing before that formidable army of demons with a giant skull king looming behind him, Fang Chu maintained a fiercely cold and impossibly cool expression. Amidst the swirling storm of dark energy, the young man stood tall and unshakable atop the high platform. Finally, the system interface popped up with a notification. "Awakening successful, class, Necromancer." Fang Chu frowned and muttered, "Necromancer," staring fixedly at his hands emanating demonic chi and the glowing blue-eyed phantom hovering behind his back, asking himself, "Is this really my class?" The male students nearby pointed and burst into loud laughter, "Ha ha ha," causing Fang Chu to turn around in bewilderment, thinking, "Huh." The blonde ringleader sneered gloatingly, mocking him for making such a huge fuss with all those special effects only to awaken as a necromancer, declaring triumphantly that while it was a rare class, it was absolute trash at the bottom of the combat class hierarchy, which a nearby male student chimed in to laugh at, adding that academic scores obviously had nothing to do with class strength. Fang Chu sank into deep thought, acknowledging that while the necromancer looked powerful on paper, it had a fatal flaw, which was needing to forge a bond deep enough with the underworld. Fang Chu continued to question himself, noting that life and death were inherently opposing concepts, and sighed as he thought how a living creature of flesh and blood could ever truly understand the underworld. Fang Chu smirked confidently, thinking to himself, "However, I am completely different." The system instantly displayed his personal attribute panel. Name: Fang Chu. Class: Necromancer. Level: Lower tier novice. Attributes: Strength 1, Constitution 1, Agility 1, Spirit 2. A brilliant green notification popped up congratulating the host on awakening the underworld exploration system, causing Fang Chu to smile as he lifted the glowing green magic orb and muttered that his golden finger, fashionably late by 18 years, had finally arrived. The system continuously flashed new notifications, stating that he had unlocked the system, which had automatically connected to the underworld for him while simultaneously generating an underworld skeleton avatar. The system displayed a detailed guide stating that the player could use the skeleton avatar to explore the underworld, devour other underworld creatures to level up and grow stronger, or summon the skeleton avatar into the real world, while warning that the experience carried unknown risks and advising the host to proceed with caution. Fang Chu stroked his chin with a smug look, thinking that an underworld reality experience was literally a system tailor-made for a necromancer. He curved his lips into an enigmatic and confident smile at the bright future ahead. He gave a decisive command, "Summon." Then he gasped in surprise, realizing that this guy was his underworld skeleton avatar, while the system chimed in with an explanation that before summoning the avatar externally, he could temporarily soul-possess the body to experience the underworld firsthand. The system continued its gloomy notifications, explaining that the skeleton avatar could devour other underworld creatures to boost its own attributes, and furthermore, defeated underworld creatures could also be summoned by the host to fight in the real world, causing Fang Chu to grow excited as he thought that if he wiped out enough of them, he would have an endless army of summons. Fang Chu gazed far into the desolate underworld landscape and made a proud declaration. "And this entire underworld will become my personal hunting ground." Fang Chu shook his head slightly, thinking that exploring the underworld could wait for later, as he immediately ordered the system to summon the avatar to the real world. The system responded swiftly. "Understood, immediately beginning the skeleton avatar summon for you." A magic circle blazed underfoot as a massive skeleton avatar draped in gloomy black robes slowly stepped out with an aura of supreme majesty. Fang Chu mentally assessed the towering entity beside him, realizing the skeleton avatar could indeed be summoned directly into reality, making it his strongest summon yet. Teacher Lu Hu shouted out to call the next student, and as the next student by Zaya Ocean stepped out and glanced toward Fang Chu, the teacher sighed regretfully, thinking, "Such a promising seedling, why did he have to roll this class?" A few female classmates rushed over to chirp words of comfort, telling Fang Chu not to get discouraged, with another girl firmly asserting that even if he was a necromancer, she still believed he could achieve the legendary crown, while the girl next to her stared at the skeleton in awe and asked if that was the skeleton he summoned because it looked ridiculously cool. The blonde guy standing in the distance muttered enviously, "Damn it, why does a guy who awakened such a trash class still have girls swarming around him?" Thinking angrily that just because he was handsome didn't mean he could act however he wanted, before sneering triumphantly that it was just a dry skeleton and could never be as strong as his assassin class. He hatched a malicious plot, recalling that beginner necromancers could only summon a few skeletons a year, and smiled sinisterly, thinking that if he smashed this skeleton to pieces, it would undoubtedly deal a devastating blow to Fang Chu's leveling speed. He stealthily retreated, coldly drawing his weapon as he prepared to execute his silent needle volage skill to assassinate his target. He flicked his wrist, launching a razor-sharp mini-arrow that tore through the air straight toward the skeleton with absolute determination. In his mind, he shrieked with triumphant glee, "Go to hell." Fang Chu remained entirely nonchalant, keeping his eyes closed motionlessly in the face of the enemy's sneak attack. The blonde guy's eyes widened in sheer horror as he shrieked. It vanished. Before he could even steady his wits, the skeletal face with glowing blue, gloomy eyes loomed right in front of him, making him break out in a cold sweat of terror. Before the assassin could feel triumphant, a bony hand punched him straight in the face with a force so brutal it sent blood flying everywhere. The avatar wielded its spiked staff with extreme savagery, smashing it down so hard the ambusher could only let out a shriek before face-planting into the ground. Flattened on the grass with a bloodied face, his eyes bulged in terrified disbelief as he stammered, "How is this possible?" He then struggled to his feet with a trembling body. Fang Chu strolled over leisurely while the guy clutched his swollen cheek, stumbling backward in panic as he screamed, "Fang Chu, what do you want?" The bitter blonde glared at his opponent with a gaze filled with rage and sweat pouring down in confusion, thinking, "Damn it, why is his skeleton so overpowered?" It even detected a blind spot sneak attack, but he quickly regained his sinister composure, reassuring himself with a reckless thought that Fang Chu was merely a necromancer. So no matter how strong his summon was, his real body definitely couldn't be powerful. Suddenly, the cornered punk sprang up like a coiled spring. He charged forward crazily for a frontal ambush, screaming, "Go to hell." Yet the protagonist remained completely unbothered, calmly reaching out to effortlessly grab the incoming wrist. He squeezed so tightly the bones threatened to shatter, causing the ambusher to wail in agony. The young man glanced at his enemy with half-lidded disdain and gave a cold verdict, overestimating your capabilities. With that, he channeled lightning energy into his fist and delivered a devastatingly powerful blow straight to the opponent's face without a shred of mercy. The God-given punch sent the unfortunate wretch flying backward, his face scraping across the grass to leave a long, miserable trail of blood. The crowd of students witnessing this dramatic reversal could only gape in utter shock. Meanwhile, the guy who had just aggressively demanded murder was now lying completely unconscious in a pool of blood, utterly speechless. The nonchalant male student turned around to lead his skeleton away, dropping a casual and indifferent line. "Let's go." Behind him, the students began buzzing with lively whispers, with one asking curiously what all the commotion was about, prompting a quick-witted girl to reply that Lu Renjia had just tried to ambush Fang Chu and got knocked out in a split second, which left another person marveling that he took him down with a single punch, causing a nearby male student to scratch his head in bewilderment, asking if everyone didn't say a necromancer's real body was weak. So how come Lu Renjia couldn't even beat him? The miserably defeated guy was helped to his feet by two friends, wheezing with bitter hatred. Fang Chu. He watched the other person's retreating figure fade away and gritted his teeth as he roared, "You just wait." In the blink of an eye, the school scenery returned to peace under the brilliant sunlight of late afternoon. The boy carrying the rare class had slipped away into a secluded, empty corner, breathing a sigh of relief as he thought nobody would bother him here, before calling out, "System, come out." The magic interface popped up immediately as he thought about exploring the underworld for a bit, while the considerate system chimed in. "Does the host wish to open the underworld exploration?" The teenage boy began analyzing thoroughly, knowing underworld exploration could help him understand this world better since it was mandatory coursework for necromancers. And if his luck was good, he might even devour other underworld creatures, as nothing could raise his strength better than this. Before hesitating slightly and wondering if it could really go that smoothly, he continued weighing the accompanying risks, nodding that underworld creatures were extremely dangerous, and it was anyone's guess who would end up devouring whom. But with risks and rewards always coexisting, he made a decisive decision. "System, open underworld exploration." The screen flashed brightly in response. "Understood, please wait a moment." Standing amidst swirling demonic chi, the boy resolved that since he had waited 18 years to get this system, there was no way he would waste such a massive opportunity to grow strong. The final notification popped up along with a pending confirmation button. "Underworld exploration contains an undetermined level of risk. Do you wish to open exploration?" Without a single second of hesitation, his finger reached out to tap the confirmation button. The magic circle exploded beneath his feet, accompanied by a blazing red exclamation mark symbol, signaling that a deadly dangerous zone was opening its doors to visitors. The scenery abruptly shifted to an extremely creepy world featuring a blood-red swamp, piles of skulls, and a crow resting quietly on an ancient tombstone. The uninvited guest had now possessed his avatar, kneeling on one knee across the desolate, gloomy wasteland beneath a blood moon, as he silently observed his surroundings. The skeleton raised its hands to look at them closely, thinking to himself that it was identical to the skeleton he had summoned earlier, wondering if this was what underworld exploration was like, while the system automatically updated his status. Skeleton avatar level, lower tier novice attributes: Strength 1, Constitution 1, Agility 1, Spirit 1, Equipment, none skills. Skeleton armament, apprentice rank: the innate instinct of the skeleton tribe to utilize skeletal remains to strengthen oneself and craft equipment, soul power, 0. The avatar touched its chin, pondering with curiosity. It comes with the skeleton armament skill. He strung the data clues together, figuring this must be the ability the avatar had used earlier. Immediately afterward, the skeleton turned and walked away, telling himself that for safety's sake, crafting a weapon was the absolute priority before encountering enemies, completely unaware that a giant dark shadow was quietly closing in from a blind spot. Suddenly, a hideous two-headed wolf, baring its fangs and claws, lunged from the darkness with a ferocious roar. The hunted target jumped in fright, spinning around instantly upon sensing the killing intent at his back. The ferocious two-headed beast lunged down from midair with lightning speed, forcing the novice into a desperate, tumbling dodge. The skeleton retreated into a defensive stance, breaking into a cold sweat as he realized he was attacked just like that, proving the underworld was indeed crawling with perils. The ferocious beast gave its prey no chance to breathe, suddenly lunging forward to clamp its jaws tightly onto the bony leg, causing him to cry out in panic. Oh no. With his leg suddenly clamped tight by the beast, he lamented that his leg was trapped. Without a shred of panic, the skeleton immediately raised the weapon in his hand and growled. "Then take this." Accompanied by a lightning strike, a small skeleton suddenly appeared out of nowhere to deliver a follow-up blow, causing him to cheer gleefully. "Buy one, get one free." That tricky maneuver slammed forcefully down onto the top of the beast's head. Yet the monster merely let out a low growl without a scratch, making the novice break into a cold sweat and think, did that attack literally do nothing at all? The avatar scrambled backward, dodging successive lunges as he panted heavily, and realized this skeleton body was much harder to control than he had imagined, meaning continuing like this was not a viable strategy. Right in the nick of time, his eyes flashed with a flicker of hope when he spotted something tucked away in the corner of the pile of dry bones. Ignoring the wild beast charging frantically to lunge at its prey, the skeleton spread his arms wide and roared, "Hand it over." Instantly, countless shattered bone fragments flew up and gathered together as he activated his innate skeleton armament skill. A giant reaper scythe took shape, and he spun around to slash horizontally with a wind-clearing arc across the monster's chest, screaming, "Go to hell." Suffering painful wounds, the two-headed wolf bared its fangs and claws wildly, growling with utter fury. But the undead novice quick-handedly shoved a thick bone straight into its jaws, forcing it to bite down awkwardly. Back in reality, the real body standing quietly suddenly winced, grunted, "HK," and spat out a mouthful of blood while clutching his chest. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, the male student realized the harsh truth with shock. Injuries sustained in the underworld actually transmitted back to the real world, meaning this system was far more dangerous than he had imagined. Returning to that dark world, the skeleton coldly looked down at the monster's corpse at his feet and clicked his tongue, figuring the wolf head was dead anyway. The avatar immediately reached its withered hand forward, preparing to harvest its first trophy. He plunged his hand into the ferocious beast's carcass, ruthlessly stripping away its energy and declaring, "Then let this death serve me." The Reaper's scythe was raised high once more, radiating overwhelming demonic chi alongside the command, "Skeleton armament." With a follow-up critical slash, he thoroughly finished off the enemy's remains on the blood-soaked ground. From the dark quagmire, a soul orb glowing with an eerie blue light shot out. As the dust settled, the future Lord of the Undead stood tall and swung his scythe with majestic flair after the life-or-death battle. But before he could look cool for even a few seconds, the skeleton had to drop to one knee, panting heavily from expending too much physical stamina. Looking down at the weapon in his hand, he smiled smugly, thinking skeleton armament worked even better than he thought, living up to its name as a system-gifted skill. While lost in thought, a blue soul flame suddenly flickered upward, catching his curiosity as he muttered, "What is that?" The ghostly flame drifted right up against him, completely capturing the avatar's attention. Suddenly, the flame burned fiercely, making the skeleton fidget anxiously as he wondered, what is this feeling of hunger? Unable to resist his instinctual craving for power, he reached out and grabbed the brilliant flame. And then the skeleton opened his toothless jaw, swallowing that ghostly soul straight down into his ribcage. Instantly, an abundant surge of energy coursed through all his joints, and the system cheerfully reported, "Attribute upgrade." The new stats popped up neatly, proving his hard work with strength increasing to 1.1, Constitution 1, Agility 1, Spirit 1. As the young man stared at his hand that had just received a slight power boost and muttered appreciatively that his strength stat going up by 0.1 was definitely the effect of skeleton armament. The system interface displayed lines indicating he had harvested soul power, leaving the boy scratching his head in confusion over what on earth soul power was supposed to be used for, until the system acted like an ultra-dedicated employee by instantly showcasing a slew of high-end uses. Soul power was converted from soul energy and possessed the ability to deduce skills, elevate potential, reinforce equipment, and countless other fun utilities. The skeleton's lips curved into a sly smile, his two eerie green eye sockets burning brightly in the night, meaning, in the young mage's mind, a grinding loop reminiscent of boosted farming and killing to devour sparked to life. The faces of his real body and his avatar merged as they voiced their scorching ambition matching a villainous boss. "I just need to keep hunting." The lonely silhouette strode through the garbage dump of bones, as the confident young man concluded that he could level up infinitely and crash this entire server. While out for a stroll, the young man paused as his system radar just picked up new prey. Skeleton, a cannon fodder summon of the Necromancer, an apprentice-rank undead creature. The screen displayed a malnourished skeleton charging forward with a blade, while the system ruthlessly analyzed and downgraded it, nodding it had a fragile body, a flat brain with no intelligence, and a fatal weakness located in its soul flame. Seeing easy prey served right to his doorstep, the novice immediately waved his hand to cast a spell, Skeleton Armament, causing the system to go ding-ding with congratulations to the host for successfully crafting the bone spear equipment. The pumped-up young man charged in to pluck the feathers of the monsters blocking his path, while the system continuously reported good news like hitting the lottery. Agility +01, soul power +01. Every slash that came down meant another undead creature turned into obedient nutrients, translating into constitution +01, and soul power +01. A torrent of soul energy poured in like a flood, circulating throughout his withered body and causing its owner to roar in ecstatic joy like a manic killer. My power. Propping his majestic weapon against the ground, his stat sheet had skyrocketed to Strength 3, Agility 2, Constitution 2, Spirit 2, alongside 10 points of soul power. Yet the gamer's greed was far from satisfied, thinking it still wasn't enough of a rush and he could become even more of a tank. In the blink of an eye, the scenery transmigrated back to sunny reality, right in the familiar courtyard of Haicheng High School. The teenage boy was still keeping his eyes tightly shut, immersed in his power trip delirium as he kept muttering like chanting mantras, "I can get stronger. I can still get stronger," until a sweet female voice rang out, Student Fang Chu. Caught in the middle of daydreaming about being a superhero, he jumped in fright and opened his eyes wide as that voice was right next to his ear, repeating, Student Fang Chu. Gathering his wits, the male student panicked upon seeing the pretty girl Bai Zio Ocean standing right in front of him, asking, Bai Zio Ocean, why are you here? But she anxiously cut him off, saying, Fang Chu, you. The young maiden frowned, scolding the boy with a heartbroken expression that even if he awakened a crappy class, he shouldn't go slitting his wrists to vent his frustration, which left the young man completely dumbfounded with a blank expression as he uttered, "Huh." The necromancer was torn between laughter and tears, silently complaining in his heart that his luck was terrible for getting misunderstood by this kid as a depressed youth wanting to quit life. Resolving next time he dived into the underworld, he had better find some deserted corner. He hurriedly hid his bleeding hand and scratched his head in clarification. I'm fine, I just accidentally brushed against a tree branch. But her gaze remained full of suspicion as she asked, Really? The atmosphere suddenly turned into an amusingly awkward silence along the sun-drenched hallway. To break the silence, she proactively suggested, Meditation class is about to start, let's head back to class, making the boy act as if he had just found a life preserver as he nodded frantically. Oh, sure. But just as he took a step to strike a cool pose, the young man suddenly clutched his chest and coughed up a fit of fresh blood, making the girl pale in terror as she rushed over to support him while bravely declaring, It's fine. I'll carry you to the infirmary right now. He raised his hand to block her, coughing as he insisted, I'm really fine, while crying rivers on the inside, realizing that grinding too long in the underworld had overloaded his real body. Just as the system conveniently popped up a notification reminding him like a family doctor that today's underworld exploration time had been exceeded, and the host should look after himself. A spark of curious and thrilled light flickered in the corners of the young man's eyes. Staring fixedly at the system interface in front of him, he rejoiced as if he had struck gold upon discovering that his real body's stats had also gorged on this, with strength shooting up to 1.2, constitution 1.1, agility 1.1, and spirit 1.1, even sprouting a new skeleton summon line with skill deduction and a plus button, despite the girl beside him still clutching his shirt in a panic, asking, Fang Chu, are you really not about to kick the bucket? Brushing aside the beauty's worries, his mind was now glued to that holy plus button, marveling at how this skill deduction feature had even popped out. The male student looked up at the sky, his delusions of grandeur exploding as he envisioned a future scenario of whether he could also imitate those top-tier heavyweights on the server leaderboard and custom create an exclusive ultimate technique. Beneath the shade of the teaching building at Haicheng High School, a legendary necromancer seemed about to be born, starting right from these comedic yet insanely hard-grinding moments. Inside the spacious tiered classroom, the female teacher stood at the podium tapping lightly to capture everyone's attention, saying, Class. The woman with fiery red hair and a hot figure introduced herself as Shen Hongyu, the teacher in charge of their meditation classes, and she was actually a lower Silver Realm fire-type mage. Glancing across the students who were concentrating with their eyes closed as bright golden auras radiated around them, the teacher gave detailed instructions that this was the basic meditation method corresponding to their classes, And now, everyone was required to use meditation to manifest their class abilities. The teacher's even voice echoed throughout the classroom, explaining that meditation could enhance spiritual power, which was the core foundation for them to use their skills later on. Seeing that the kids seemed tense, Teacher Shen smiled reassuringly while indulging in a bit of self-praise, telling them not to rush because failure at the start was completely normal, since even an outstanding genius like herself took half a month of training to barely complete this step. Right at that moment, the young man sitting in the back unexpectedly received a notification from his cheat system detecting a learnable skill called the skeletal meditation technique, which could rapidly deduce and achieve mastery. Did he want to begin learning? Without thinking for even half a second, the gamer's finger immediately smashed the button for yes. Instantly, countless green magic characters gushed forth in a torrent, continuously revolving and flooding straight into his mind, to make his eyes widen in surprise. Soul energy rapidly connected his real body with the netherworld, creating a perfect synchronization between the young man and the skeleton avatar beneath the black robe. A brilliant notification box popped up with good news reporting that he had successfully learned the skeletal meditation technique, making the corners of his mouth twitch upward in satisfaction, as he marveled at how fast he could learn this. The young mage continued his arrogant train of thought while looking at the image of his avatar, figuring that as far as he was concerned, it just meant glancing at his avatar a few times. Realizing a loophole in the game, he smiled secretly to himself, nodding that furthermore, as long as he didn't enter the netherworld to experience it directly, the skeleton avatar would automatically practice meditation, which was equivalent to him cultivating 24 hours a day. This system was truly an innate necromancer divine physique. Just as he was proudly coasting on auto-farming, the system sent a private message, stating that the host's spiritual power had leveled up, and he could enter the netherworld experience once more, causing him to stroke his chin and realize that entering the netherworld experience consumed spiritual power, meaning the training of both the real body and the avatar could not be neglected. Not wanting to waste any resources, the teenager closed his eyes tightly as a decisive command echoed in his mind. Open the netherworld experience. In the blink of an eye, the bone-wearing grinding warrior resumed his sprint across the desolate, blood-red land. The moment he launched his attack, his trusty minion thrust a cyan spear straight through the target, collecting the loot as physique plus 0-1 and soul power plus 0-1. His hollow eye sockets blazed with fierce killing intent as a burning passion filled the controller's heart. He could finally hunt to his heart's content again. After a session of diligent grinding, the system popped up a recharge prompt. The avatar skill had reached innate proficiency and could be used as skill material for the real body to deduce an unknown skill, with an estimated consumption of 10 points of soul power. The young man nodded in realization of the truth, understanding that when the system previously mentioned being able to deduce skills, it meant performing the deduction within the netherworld. Without hesitating to spend the points, the skeleton clasped his hands together and proclaimed loudly, "Begin deduction." The magic interface rose up with a huge green question mark accompanied by a running progress bar and the text, "New skill about to emerge, analyzing." The screen glowed brightly to report a successful unboxing. Skeletal flying spear skill deduction successful. After reading the detailed description of the apprentice rank proficient skeletal flying spear, which condensed bone spears to throw at enemies, combining armor-piercing physical damage with death energy damage, while quantity, power, and range were determined by spiritual attributes and skill proficiency. The young man was extremely pleased, noting that the skeletal flying spear matched the weapon he crafted perfectly. He was even more shocked when the screen laid out an entire skill tree branching out from the skeletal flying spear into skeletal shield, skeletal giant claw, and skeletal binding, making the gamer rejoice at being gifted an entire derivative skill tree. Shoving the high-end spear over his shoulder, the avatar paced forward with calculated intent, thinking he needed to stockpile more soul power, before his footsteps abruptly halted. Facing a pack of ghost hounds that had just entered his range, the Lord of Death sneered, "What a coincidence, let's use you guys to test out my new skill." No sooner had the words left his mouth than a massive beam of energy imbued with overwhelming force plunged straight down from the sky, creating a shocking bone-shattering explosion. Instantly, those bones carrying brilliant blue soul flames shot forth, tearing through the air to lunge toward the enemy. The executioner savored the results and nodded approvingly, remarking that this was far too powerful compared to apprentice-rank skills like Death Bolt or Debuff Ray. But his farming joy was interrupted when the dropped experience points trickled in meagerly, agility plus 005, soul power plus 005, strength plus 005, soul power plus 005, making the young man frown in confusion as he wondered why the attributes and soul power provided by these small skeletons had decreased. Looking at his sluggish stat sheet, strength, 3.1 physique, 2.05 agility, 2.05 spirit, 2 soul power, 10.2. The system player clicked his tongue and sighed, realizing the system definitely wouldn't let him farm attributes mindlessly, as this was forcing him to head deeper into the more hazardous regions of the netherworld. Even so, with a miser's spirit, he hoisted his rugged spear and grandly declared that before he could no longer harvest bone essence from these creatures at all, he had to grind hard and devour these low-tier undead even more. In a flash, the scenery shifted back to the real classroom where teacher Shen Hongyu stood imposingly, frowning in annoyance upon hearing a chuckling sound. HMPH. Instantly, a hand sneaked out to tug at the corner of the meditating young man's shirt as a quiet voice called out, "Hey, hey." The male student broke out in a cold sweat and snapped awake, seeing the teacher coldly questioning him. "Fang Chu, everyone else is working hard at meditation. Why are you sitting there grinning foolishly?" Causing him to stammer awkwardly in self-defense. Me." The sharp-mouthed guy from the row behind popped up again to chime in maliciously. "Teacher, I know Fang Chu basically has no way of succeeding at meditation," prompting a front-row male student to question if that was true since rare classes supposedly had better meditation efficiency, to which the other guy replied haughtily and harshly that an idiot had to look at what kind of rare class it was first. The classroom buzzed once again with whispering analysis, nodding that necromancers were rarely ever awakened, and the skeletal meditation technique they learned was said to be an incomplete version, while another student nodded in agreement that it was no wonder Fang Chu probably struggled even to enter a meditation state, leaving the owner of the class with a dark and speechless expression. Teacher Shen Hongyu sighed softly and issued a stern reprimand, saying she knew his class had a hard time with meditation, but he couldn't just give up. And now because he alone wasn't putting in effort, he was wasting everyone else's time. Using that as an excuse, she turned to Lu Renjia and said, "Look at how hard Lu Renjia is working. After just one class session, he's already able to meditate a blade hilt into form," prompting the blonde guy holding a blazing sword hilt to put on a fake display of modesty. "Teacher Shen flatters me. I've only comprehended 1/3 of the meditation technique, and this cultivation speed is just ordinary genius level." Meanwhile, his provocative gaze slanted sideways toward his arch-rival as he thought, "Fang Chu, by now you should fully understand the gap between a necromancer and other classes, right?" Hearing the empty boast, Fang Chu merely smirked indifferently and leisurely dropped a remark. "Heh heh, that speed is indeed very ordinary," making the blonde guy jump in shock and blurt out, "What?" Immediately, the sharp-mouthed front-row guy turned around and pointed straight at his face to scold him, saying he couldn't even enter meditation, so he needed to check his own condition before talking big. Without bothering to waste words, Fang Chu instantly erupted with a billowing wave of dark necrometric chi that frightened the blonde guy into gasping, "Huh?" and caused the surrounding people to cry out in alarm as they stepped back. Teacher Shen Hongyu knitted her brows tightly and shouted in a stern, authoritative voice to restore order, "Lu Renjia, pull your mind back." Seeing this, the teacher angrily scolded Fang Chu. "What do you mean by this? Meditation class is for learning meditation. If you want to act like a bully showing off your strength, save it for the combat class later." But the Fang-named youth calmly replied that he just wanted Lu Renjia to step aside a little bit, curving his lips into a sinister, devilish smile before continuing leisurely, so she could conveniently witness his meditation progress. No sooner had he finished speaking than the entire class erupted in chatter. "What? Could it be that Fang Chu has succeeded in meditation?" Though Lu Renjia still tried to salvage some face by mocking that even if he succeeded, it was at most completing a tiny fraction of the novice rank. Ignoring the frogs at the bottom of the well, Fang Chu half-closed his eyes and steadily chanted the skeletal meditation technique. Instantly, a wave of dark chi erupted furiously like a gale, sweeping through the entire classroom, shaking everyone's gaze. Lu Renjia and the sharp-mouthed buddy beside him were immediately scared out of their wits, turning pale as paper with their jaws dropping in shock as they stood frozen in place. Even the experienced teacher Shen Hongyu turned pale and cried out in horror, How? How is this possible? In just a single class session, he's already brought the skeletal meditation technique to the mastery stage." Backed by the towering shadow of the great skeleton behind him, Fang Chu smiled with dark charm to deliver a devastating punchline. This speed of mine is probably about 1 billion times faster than an ordinary genius. Right at that moment, the classroom door swung wide open as a burly teacher with a thick, full beard stepped inside, nodding in approval as he remarked that their meditation progress didn't look bad at all. The bearded teacher put his hands on his hips and grandly announced that they would hold a test tomorrow, making Fang Chu raise an eyebrow slightly in query. A test. The whole class immediately wailed and lamented noisily. What? So soon? Combat class is already here, and my meditation technique hasn't even reached mastery yet. However, the blonde Lu Renjia seized this opportunity to sneer and think to himself. Heh, Fang Chu, combat class is nothing like meditation class. In my specialized domain, let's see how you can keep acting high and mighty as a rookie mage when the time comes. In a flash, the scenery shifted back to the gloomy, red-tinted netherworld, where Fang Chu's skeleton avatar was strolling leisurely. His bony heels stomped heavily onto the barren ground to prepare for a new hunt. Fang Chu mentally evaluated his own changes, nodding that after the skeletal meditation technique reached mastery, the duration he could linger in the netherworld had increased quite a bit. Therefore, the young man resolved to grip the spear in his skeleton's hand tighter with blazing willpower, thinking he couldn't afford to be lazy, and had to take advantage of his remaining spiritual power to slaughter even more undead creatures. The figure of death darted nimbly, brandishing his weapon to tear apart the lowly enemies before him as he roared crazily. More. Dark chi surged with every fatal thrust, piercing straight through the chests of the mob monsters blocking his path. Sweeping across a long stretch of land littered with white bone ruins, the workaholic monster roared again. I can still kill even more, until the blue soul flames in his eye sockets began flickering repeatedly, forcing the skeleton to finally halt and pant for breath. Surveying the chaotic battlefield of harvest results, the Lord of Death nodded to himself, nodding that his spiritual power was nearly exhausted for today. No sooner had he thought that than a glowing green notification appeared. The host's class level had upgraded, and the skeleton avatar would receive corresponding reinforcement, making him cheer excitedly. Oh, it seems my hard work wasn't wasted. Without a single second of hesitation, his bony finger reached out to tap lightly on the yes, but instantly the avatar's leveling progress bar appeared, accompanied by a gigantic emerald pillar of light that enveloped his entire figure. His cracked armor began to mend itself, while vibrant crimson vein-like patterns surfaced brilliantly. His death eye sockets blazed with an oppressive and savage energy. As a result, a brand new stat sheet struck his eyes. The skeleton avatar had just reached the lower median apprentice rank with strength 5 physique, 3 agility, 3 spirit, 3 soul power, 10, along with gray skeletal spear equipment, accompanied by a system notification of successful upgrade and automatic acquisition of a new skill, Brutal Strike, which made the grinding youth praise it appreciatively. Leveling up actually lets you get skills too. Reading the green information block of the new skill, Fang Chu happily envisioned scenes of slaughter. The novice-rank Brutal Strike skill possessed an explosive effect, unleashing massive strength to attack the enemy based on strength attributes and skill proficiency. The Lord of Death patted his ribcage smugly, thinking, awesome. With this skill, my speed at mowing down hordes of undead is going to be kicked up to a whole new level. But life wasn't a fairy tale. Before his arrogant smile could even fade, a wave of dizziness washed over him, making the 2 blue flames in his eye sockets flicker like a dying light bulb. The grinding monster clutched his bald skull and collapsed to the ground, crying rivers of tears internally as he cursed himself for admiring his cool skill too much and completely forgetting about his mana bar, since his spiritual power had bottomed out ages ago. The scenery instantly shifted back to the sunny, breezy courtyard of Heicheng High School, filled with energetic youths in their prime. Returning to reality, Fang Chu sat slumped on the steps with a grimacing expression, clutching his head and groaning. Damn, my head hurts so much. This mana bar is still way too humble. Seeing this, the thoughtful class monitor stepped over to check on him. Fang Chu, what's wrong with you? Ever since meditation class, your face has looked like a rag all week, forcing the male lead to offer an awkward, face-saving smile. I'm fine, just a bit overdone on the daily grinding. I mean, practicing, while breaking out in a cold sweat internally, and vowing that the secret of this game-hacking system must never be leaked. And next time he logged into the netherworld, he'd better find some lonely corner. Just as he was wallowing in misery, that familiar, obnoxious, sharp-mouthed voice rang out right in the Necromancer's face. As expected of a trash class, after just a little meditation, he's already this weak. accompanied by a lackey chiming in to trash talk. Spot on. Don't think getting 1 foot through the door of meditation makes you hot stuff. This profession ultimately still relies on fists to talk. The female class monitor couldn't hold back anymore, standing up with ruffled feathers to defend him. You guys cut it out. Has Fang Chu ever touched your rice bowls? Why are you always barking blindly at him? But Lu Renjia just stuck out his chubby chin to argue stubbornly. I'm just speaking unpalatable truths. Realizing he had backers, Lu Renjia grew even bolder, pointing straight at Fang Chu's face and barking aggressively. What? Still itching for a beating? You bastard, do you think this young master is as weak as I was a week ago? He tossed his hair for effect and waved his hands around as his fiery sword danced like a fan, bragging that he had attained enlightenment and learned class skills. So now all he needed to do was sneeze to easily send Fang Chu off to meet his ancestors. Just as the atmosphere grew thick with the smell of gunpowder, the muscular teacher let out a lion's roar to quell the chaos. All of you, rein in your attitudes, causing the students to instantly shut down and mutter submissively, Hello, Teacher Lu. Teacher Lu glared with bullet-like eyes to lecture the delusional punk. The school teaches skills so you can go out and chop monsters in the future, not for you guys to bare your teeth and tear at each other, making Lu Renjia tuck his tail in obediently like a puppy. I understand, sir. Having cleared away the obstacle, the teacher turned to look at Fang Chu with meaningful eyes. I've seen your results from meditation class. You better go all out in the combat class too, prompting the young man to nod quickly and obey. Yes, sir. Watching the teacher's sturdy, masculine retreating back, Fang Chu stroked his chin with self-indulgent narcissism, thinking Teacher Lu really must have designs on favoring and pampering a genius like him. Without letting his students laze around, Teacher Lu stood in the middle of the sports field and roared, Everyone, gather around! And the flock of sheep rushed over like a broken hive, shouting, Understood. The teacher ordered a few errand-running students to bring all the equipment over immediately, and a cap-wearing male student hurried over, answering eagerly, Yes, sir, right away. Before long, a weird-looking machine was pushed out onto the field amidst everyone's bewilderment. Teacher Lu proudly patted the metal shoulder of the robot and smiled slyly as he introduced it to them. Let me introduce you kids to this. This is an apprentice-rank test puppet, guaranteed to be super tough and durable, used to measure your combat capability and how tanky you are. Pointing at the LED screen on the machine's chest, the teacher began explaining the scoring system. Taking the absolute shittiest little imp of the abyss as a baseline reference, this robot could take the claws of one straight to the chest, converting to a standard defense power score of 100. Looking at the dilapidated state of the puppet, an itchy-handed student knocked on its skull and asked doubtfully, Teacher, this piece of scrap metal looks so worn out. What if we accidentally break it completely? Causing Fang Chu on the sidelines to raise an eyebrow in curiosity. Break it completely. Hearing the naive question, Teacher Lu sneered, delivered a sharp slap to the puppet's head, and boldly declared, In the history of our school, no freshman has ever been recorded as having enough skill to even scratch it. Today, whichever one of you can use pure physical strength alone to rip the head right off this puppet. Teacher Lu spread both hands wide to seal the deal on a big prize. I, Lu Hu, am willing to pledge my honor as an instructor to promise that person a cash reward of 20 contribution points. The moment they heard the scent of money, all the students immediately gasped and cheered as if they had struck gold. Whoa, so generous. 20 alliance contribution points. Haha, there's no hiding our cards after this. Under the warm glow of capitalism, Fang Chu's eyes lit up with dollar signs, knowing that in this utilitarian world, contribution points were hard cash. If he wanted to buy toys or purchase extra skill books, where else could he get them if he didn't grind for them? Greed flared up as everyone scrambled to raise their hands wildly like a chaotic market. Teacher, I want a test. Step aside, I'm going first. But the teacher immediately barked to restore order. Line up one by one for me. Ordinary classes test first. Opening the batting order was a fire-type mage student who struck a cool pose, channeling blazing red fire from both hands as if preparing a barbecue, accompanied by an artistic wave of his hand and a booming roar of fireball spell. A brilliant fireball slammed hard into the robot in the most grandiose fashion possible. But who could foresee life's twists? Teacher Lu glanced at the electronic display board and read out the data indifferently. Attack power, 48, making the mage's face turn pale as he stammered defensively. Clearly, I used enough force to bite my lips, and it felt earth-shattering. How come the display only shows a tiny bit? The second person was a swordsman who rushed forward to slash a wind-clearing arc while shouting fancifully, Mortal strike! only to receive a score of 41 and wish he could dig a hole to hide in. The third person refused to resign himself to fate, transforming into a divine archer who drew his bow to fire a blinding, eye-straining shot, with the stone-izing arrow closing out the score at a clean 50 amid the boundless despair of the rookie class. Once the weaklings finished sweating, Teacher Lu crossed his arms and announced, "All ordinary classes have completely finished testing. The remaining special classes can step up onto the platform in order." Down below, the students from ordinary classes hugged each other and wept. None of us trash classes managed to crawl past the score of 60 during the test. No wonder Teacher Lu was generous enough to brag so loudly. That 20 contribution points was basically bait we could never bite. I wonder how those favored hidden class children will score. Meanwhile, Fang Chu stood stroking his chin thoughtfully as Dark Chi rose, and he turned around, thinking that his current attack power completely relied on his squad of skeletal minions, and wondering if the test puppet's stats allowed for cumulative calculation. Sharp-mouthed Lu Renjia walked past again and dropped a sarcastic remark. "Look at your twisted face. You already know your attack power is definitely at the bottom of the pile, right?" Making Fang Chu raise an eyebrow lazily. Lu Renjia lunged forward, roaring with excitement. "Now I'm going to open your eyes and show you the gap between us after learning a skill." He brandished a glowing red dagger and swung a giant wind-clearing slash at the puppet. The result displayed on the screen was 80. Lu Renjia puffed out his chest with self-satisfaction. "See that? This is the overpowered nature of the hidden phantom assassin class." But before he could act arrogant, a male student behind him curled his lip and mocked him. "As if you're the only one who awakened a hidden class. Stop acting so proud over nothing." Cutting short the show-off session, Teacher Lu held the attendance roster and called out in a booming voice, "Yi Fan, come up for the test." The cold male student answered firmly, "Present." Instantly, the crowd buzzed with chatter. "I remember Yi Fan awakened the super cool demon executioner class, right?" "Exactly, I heard that the moment he awakened, big shots from the school kept their eyes on him and even specially set up an exclusive research team for him. So envious. I wonder how insane his attack power is." Yi Fan stepped onto the platform with a romantic, suave demeanor, tossing his hair as a gigantic green energy reaper phantom materialized behind his back. His gaze was icy cold and highly focused in preparation for a fatal swing. Launching himself into midair like a deity, Yi Fan brought his giant scythe crashing down onto the robot's head as he roared, "Vengeful strike." Yet the screen displayed a tiny score of 65, making the nerds standing outside scratch their heads in curiosity. "Huh, this number is only slightly higher than mine. Only 65. Yi Fan's bright blue eyes flashed with a burning intent to kill as he thought, "It's not over yet." It turned out this young man's skill was a combo attack. The number on the puppet's chest danced wildly up to 69 amidst everyone's astonishment. The tempestuous chain of slashes continued to reap results as the number surged to 88 and then hit a clean 100 milestone. The wind stopped blowing. Yi Fan hoisted his scythe and struck a cool pose beside the machine as Teacher Lu nodded and called out his name. "Yi Fan, attack capability 100. Observing from afar, Fang Chu smiled with calculated slyness, realizing that attack points could indeed be accumulated, which meant dismantling that battered test puppet wouldn't be all that difficult for him. The dark attribute student Yi Fan walked down leisurely amidst admiring gazes, leaving behind murmurs of, "Looks like in this class." The Yi-named youth shoved his hands into his pockets and lifted his chin to the sky with self-admiration. "There's still no opponent skilled enough to surpass me, Yi Fan." Seeing someone else steal the spotlight, Lu Renjia curled his lip sourly. That guy just cheated by following up with extra strikes to get that score. If I'd known, I would have swung a few more times too. But he was immediately slapped down by the gray-haired girl. "You're an assassination-type assassin class. Where on earth would you get a combo slash skill to try and copy that?" Teacher Lu ignored the bickering punks and called out, "Bai Zioxian, come up here," prompting the busty girl to step forward enthusiastically. "Yes, sir." Bai Zioxian puffed out her cheeks and took a breath, endlessly self-hypnotizing in her heart. "I'm a hidden class after all. No matter how sloppy my fighting is, I absolutely cannot look too embarrassed." Swinging her long, slender legs in an artistic curve, she unleashed a furious storm of green leaves that lashed straight at the target. But painfully for her, Teacher Lu announced calmly, "Bai Zioxian, attack capability 31, freezing her in place as she cursed the heavens. "Damn it, the combat power of support types is just way too pathetic." Lu Renjia seized the opportunity once again to bare his teeth and laugh heartily. "Ha! You talked a big game, but the result is just this bit of cat-scratch skill. If I'd punched a few more times, my attack would have been at least 80 or higher," while the bearded teacher still called out the next person indifferently. Gu Jishu. Stepping onto the platform was the Storm Mage student. Waving both hands, he conjured crackling green lightning bolts, and the wind energy missile yielded the result. Gu Jishu, attack capability 72. Next, the tanky brawler from the Earth Knight class slammed his shield straight into the robot's chest with a loud crash, and the shield bash impact brought in the score. Zhao Yuan, attack capability 69. Not stopping there, a muscular, brawny student from the Heavy Hammer Warrior class swung a gigantic hammer down with shattering force, and the heavy hammer impact closed out the score. Chen Yang, attack capability 84. Students watching on started clicking their tongues and chatting. Those big guys' attack powers are all several times higher than mine, but from start to finish not a single one managed to break the 100 mark. What a pity. 100 couldn't even scratch an itch on that puppet, so Teacher Lu's stash of contribution points is probably going to go unclaimed. Another replied, "Not necessarily. Did you forget there's still one hidden class character who hasn't bothered to take the stage yet?" The whole gang turned simultaneously to look at the young man standing motionless like a dark statue. "That's right. There's still the Necromancer Fang Chu to close things out." Hearing that, Lu Renjia's mouth itched to mock them. "Are you guys pinning your hopes on a Necromancer? That punk probably can't even cough up 10 points of attack power." A few freeloaders laughed along. "Ha ha ha, Brother Lu is totally right. Not to mention that pile of dry bones of his. Whether Lei family's skeleton can even stand upright on its own is still an unknown variable." Without minding the whispers, Fang Chu raised his voice evenly from behind to provoke him. "Are you 100% sure I can't snatch those 20 contribution points?" Making Lu Renjia puff out his chest and scoff defiantly. "Ha ha ha, as if a good-for-nothing like you could get them." He pointed at the robot's head and made a dramatic, high-stakes gamble. "Listen here, if you manage to break this thing, I will swallow this machine whole right here on the spot for you to see." Fang Chu smirked, stepping forward briskly as he left the bewildered Lu behind. "You're the one whose own mouth blurted that out, remember." Reaching the middle of the field, the male lead leisurely spread his hands and offered a polite warning. "Everyone, please step back a bit." The sharp-mouthed guy still tried to force a comeback to mock him. "What's wrong? Scared your dismal stats will be seen by us and we'll laugh our heads off?" Fang Chu calmly closed his eyes and said, "No." Suddenly, a burst of green energy erupted as illusory hellish chains billowed up from the ground to surround Fang Chu, accompanied by a mystical voice. "It's just that the skill I'm about to throw requires taking up a slightly larger space, that's all." From within the dark mist of death, the figures of hideous skeletons with green blazing eyes walked leisurely out behind their lord. The students standing outside dropped their jaws in absolute terror and shrieked in horror. "What the hell is that? 10 skeletons? Is Fang Chu planning to ambush the whole school? Didn't rumors say apprentice-rank mages can only summon 2 at most? Could this guy Fang Chu have massaged his way into leveling up to a black iron mage?" Teacher Lu wiped away a cold sweat, screaming frantically in his head as he remembered a legend. Even the female necromancer hailed as the most genius in history, Su Xinyuan, could only summon 5 skulls when she first awakened. Looking at Fang Chu standing with his hands clasped arrogantly amidst the surging dark qi, the muscular teacher secretly swallowed his saliva, thinking, "Is this kid Fang Chu's talent actually even more overpowered than Su Xinyuan's?" Meanwhile, the grinding executioner was stroking his chin with satisfaction, thinking, "Luckily I held back a bit and hid my cards, otherwise that thing called attention would have been way out of bounds." Without dragging things out with lengthy chatter, the Lord of Death lifted his chin and ordered his squad of skeletal minions, "Go chew him up for me." The entire pack of skeletons immediately bolted like unleashed hounds, while the sharp-mouthed Lu Renjia trembled with fear as he muttered, "The speed of these dry bones is way past the legal limit." In the blink of an eye, 20 monsters swarmed the test robot in a gang beatdown, punching and kicking furiously without missing a single hit. The electronic display board on the puppet's chest jumped frantically like an odometer. 30, 45, 60, 65. The onlookers began pointing and judging, making a huge racket, and saying his attack power wasn't actually rated that high after all. Though another person chimed in that 65 was already pretty decent, since plenty of warrior-class guys couldn't even crawl past that milestone. While someone else scoffed that summoning a whole bunch of minions just to rack up that much score proved necromancers were trash for eternity. Seeing this, Lu Renjia seized the opportunity to burst out laughing right in his opponent's face. "Is that it? 65 points averaged out means every single one of your pathetic little skulls didn't even pack 10 points of attack power. Brushing aside the barking dog by his ear, Fang Chu narrowed his eyes and dropped a cold remark. Don't bare your teeth in a grin just yet, the good show has only just begun, making Lu Renjia frown in frustration and snap. What do you mean? At a time like this, you're still trying to thrash around and salvage some face. The dark chi surrounding the male lead erupted even more violently as he curled his lips into a sinister smile. 10 wasn't enough to beat it down, so bring out 20 to chew it to pieces for me. The whole class experienced a fit of extreme shock with their jaws dropping wide open. What the heck? Was Fang Chu deliberately holding back his cards this whole time? Someone rubbed their eyes and mumbled. There's at least 20 skeletons in this pile. Has history ever recorded a necromancer hacking the game like this? While the class monitor clapped happily and thought she just knew her Fang Chu would definitely pull it off. Not stopping there, a lead skeleton swung a punch overflowing with power right into the machine's electronic display panel. The number skyrocketed to 97, causing the machine to start wailing with distressing warning alarms. Then a flurry of critical strikes landed, blasting the score straight past the 100 ceiling all the way up to 108 amidst crackling sparks and electrical short circuits. A massive explosion erupted, sending the test machine renowned for being super tough flying into the air like a piece of discarded toy trash before the eyes of 1,000 witnesses. The entire mob of students fell utterly speechless, dropping their jaws as they watched the puppet take flight and soar across the deep blue sky. Once they snapped back to their senses, the sports field turned into a chaotic marketplace. Wasn't 65 supposed to be the limit before the puppet bursts from exceeding capacity? One guy pulled at his hair in disbelief, asking if it was real or fake since Fang Chu had only awakened a few days ago, while another clutched his head and shrieked that this guy Fang Chu was an absolute monster and completely not human. Lu Renjia's legs turned to jelly as he gazed up at the electronic board that had crashed to the ground with a desperate look in his eyes. It even blew past the measurement limit of the testing machine. That blazing red 999 score pierced his eyes like a curse. How can such an absurd thing possibly exist? Truly, Lu Renjia's face distorted with sweat pouring like a waterfall, and his mouth hanging open wide enough to stuff a chicken egg, because he simply could not accept this humiliating truth. With absolute style, Fang Chu leisurely strolled over to the pile of scrap metal and picked up the battered head of the puppet. The young man shoved the iron head right into Lu Renjia's chest, flashing a polite yet murderous smile. It's dinner time, you can open your mouth and swallow it down now, making the other guy stammer as he backed away. I. Seeing his opponent scared close to peeing his pants, Fang Chu gave a cold huff, not wanting to eat his fine too. Instantly, the dark eyes of the Lord of Death glared fiercely, radiating a deadly pressure. Vanish from my sight forever. The defeated loser bolted away in a panic, hastily tossing back a classic villain line to salvage a shred of dignity. Next time I'll definitely teach you a lesson. Business finished, the female class monitor scurried over with starry, admiring eyes. Fang Chu, you're way too overpowered. What's your cultivation secret? Hurry up and open a class to teach me. But the grinding youth merely scratched his head with an evasive laugh. Well, I just do my routine meditation training like clockwork. Bearded teacher Lu who strode over, clapping in applause. Well done, Fang Chu. Today you really opened this teacher's eyes, while the male lead maintained his humble posture. You flatter me, sir. Suddenly, the teacher gave his student's shoulder a heavy slap and nodded with a promise. The school's priority cultivation seed roster. I'll definitely pound the table to secure a spot for you. The scenery flashed to the luxurious principal's office, where a white-haired elder was listening to a report. Sir, out of 10,000 total freshmen across the school, 9,103 successfully awakened, and 897 unfortunate ones failed, bringing the estimated successful awakening rate to about 91%. The secretary's even voice continued reading the statistics. Meanwhile, there are a total of 85 individuals who locked down rare classes, including prominent names such as Earth Knight Zhao Yuan, Song-chanting Xuan by Xia Oxian, along with Storm Mage Gu Jishu and Demon Executioner Yi Fan. The white-haired elder stroked his beard and nodded. MHM, 100 slots for priority cultivation seeds. These 85 people can be directly placed on the list. Yet when his gaze drifted down to the male lead's file, he frowned and muttered. However, Fang Chu, looking at the ill-fated class listed on the paper, he sighed mercilessly. A dead-end class like Necromancer should still be crossed off and eliminated from the list. Right at that moment, a knock on the door interrupted his thoughts, and the dignified principal spoke up. come in. Seeing muscular Teacher Lu rush in frantically, the principal asked in surprise, Teacher Lu, aren't you teaching the combat class? What free time brings you running to my office? As the bearded teacher panted heavily in reply, Principal, I have an urgent matter to report. Without missing a beat, Lu Hu lunged forward, tossed the pile of documents on the desk into disarray, snatched a paper, and shouted, Found it! Making the principal frown in confusion. You're all worked up. What on earth are you trying to pull? The combat instructor slammed Fang Chu's profile dossier right in front of the big boss and grandly announced, Necromancer Fang Chu, I strongly nominate him to join the school's seed list. The principal crossed his arms and shook his head in refusal. While a necromancer class indeed has massive potential, practice has proven that potential is extremely hard to convert into actual strength, prompting Teacher Lu to immediately cite a counterexample. Major Su Xinhuan is also a necromancer, and her combat prowess is by no means inferior to other magic classes. Struck back, the old man rubbed his temples in frustration. Su Xinhuan only managed to scrape by into human shape because her legendary father poured all his effort into cultivating her. As for this Fang Chu you speak of, what capital does he have to compare? The principal stood up, walked over to the window, and lowered his voice into a stern warning. Instructor, I know you and Fang Chu's parents were comrades who went through life and death together, and they truly are heroes of the Federation. However, the old man's tone instantly hardened with unyielding principle. Yet this seed list carries monumental weight. Accompanying it is not just an overwhelming amount of cultivation resources, but also a heavy responsibility resting on one's shoulders. Unfazed, Teacher Lu presented a stack of paperwork in front of the big boss and retorted confidently, That's precisely why I'm nominating Fang Chu. These are his performance reports from the meditation class and combat class just now, causing the principal to raise an eyebrow in curiosity. Oh, glancing over the paper, the old man jumped in startle and read aloud. Instantly comprehended the skeletal meditation technique during his very first meditation class, and summoned over 20 skeletons in actual combat. Seizing the moment, a smug Lu Hu added, With his monstrous talent, he has a very high chance of rewriting history for the necromancer profession, forcing the principal to compromise. No need to say more. Wait until the simulated battlefield opens. We'll look at his performance then and decide. Holding the dossier in his hand, a gleam of interest flashed in the principal's eyes. Fang Chu, is it? This old man conversely wants to keep his eyes open and see what kind of tricks you kid can pull off. The scenery shifted back to the sun-drenched school grounds as the female class monitor trotted along behind Fang Chu and asked curiously, Fang Chu, how on earth did you manage to be so overwhelmingly badass? She blinked her large round eyes with open adoration. It was your very first combat class, and you could already summon an army of skeletons that large. But the grinding youth merely shrugged nonchalantly. I just summoned a few more than usual, what's the big deal? Hearing that fake innocent act, the girl pointed straight at his face to expose him. Excessive modesty is the peak of arrogance, you know, big guy? Prompting Fang Chu to burst into hearty laughter. Ha ha, I really think this stuff is just small fry. As his finger lightly wiped the corner of his eye, the Lord of Death wore a sly, narcissistic smile inward. How could I possibly confess the truth to you? The puny little display of strength I just put on is merely a drop in the ocean compared to my true tankiness. While he was busy gloating internally, an arrogant voice rang out from behind. Fang Chu, stop right there, making him halt his steps and turn his head back. Standing against the gentle breeze, the youth Yi Fan stroked his chest with supreme narcissism and delivered an anime-style proclamation. I, Yi Fan, have never feared anyone in my entire life. Surveying this entire Class 1, you're the only one qualified to be my destined rival. Faced with that delusional display, Fang Chu and the class monitor could only look at each other speechlessly, with huge question marks clearly visible on their faces. Brushing off the Chunabiu Chunvers, Fang Chu waved his hand and turned to walk away coldly, saying, Sorry, I don't have the time to entertain folks with adolescent delusions. What a weird guy, which sent the Yi-named youth scrambling after him with cries of, Hold on. The demon executioner blocked his path and stated firmly, I'm not looking for a pointless challenge with you. Instead, I hope you can be my sparring partner. Fang Chu raised an eyebrow in surprise. A sparring partner. Yi Fan adopted a dead-serious expression and explained thoroughly. After awakening the rare demon executioner class, I was specially assigned to a dedicated research project team. and the core focus of that research urgently needs a sparring partner with strength matching mine to collect data. The reasoning sounded plausible, but capitalist Fang Chu simply spread his hands and shrugged pragmatically. Even so, why on earth should I waste my time coordinating with you for that research nonsense? Yifan smiled confidently, holding up a single finger as he promised an astronomical price. 10 contribution points to lock you in as my sparring partner for 2 weeks, plus all meals and lodging fully covered. The moment he caught the scent of money, Fang Chu flipped his attitude faster than a pancake, rushing over to shake hands firmly while shouting brightly, "Pleasure doing business with you," leaving the ye-named youth to laugh smugly to himself for spotting such a prime rival, while the class monitor stood stunned in the background with her jaw dropped, gasping. "What? You just sold yourself out to grind for hire just like that?" Fearing the debtor might change his mind, Yifan bolted off to urge him along, shouting, "No time to lose, haul your ass over to my place right now." The class monitor hurried after Fang Chu and challenged him in exasperation. "Did you really just blindly sell yourself out to that Chunabu weirdo?" The male protagonist shoved both hands into his pockets, wearing the satisfied smile of someone experiencing a bumper harvest as he replied, 10 shiny contribution points is no small sum. If I didn't scoop it up, it'd be a total waste of heaven's bounty." Fang Chu glanced sideways at the newly acquired contribution points, muttering inwardly that his own household certainly stood in dire need of these resources. With that thought, he turned to probe his female classmate. "Say, is that guy Yifan actually some rich second-gen kid to be throwing around such generosity?" Causing the girl to curl her lip and retort, "Rich second-gen my foot. All those contribution points were advanced to him by the Research Association." Observing the other guy's delusional airs, the class monitor crossed her arms and sighed as she further explained that since they were advanced funds, Yifan would undoubtedly have to break his back paying off the debt later. Yet looking at the reckless spending habits of the Yi fellow, she could only shake her head in despair and guess that after graduation he'd probably be trapped paying off debts for a solid 20 years, making Fang Chu break out in a cold sweat as he mumbled, "Yikes. So that's how it is." While they were busy gossiping, Yifan had already arrived in front of a modern building and waved his arms to call out loudly, "We're here. You two hurry up and come inside." Leading the group inside, the demon guy proudly introduced the space. "This is the laboratory of our special project team. What do you think? Pretty epic, right?" Sweeping his gaze across the room, Fang Chu couldn't help marveling at the cutting-edge equipment surrounding them. "This lab is seriously high-end. The perks for a hidden class truly live up to their legendary reputation." From the corner of the room, a bespectacled man with a mechanical arm stepped out to greet them. "Welcome, kids. I'm the person in charge of the Demon Executioner Research Association, Silver Rank Swift Ranger Chen Kingshan." The two of them politely bowed and greeted him with, "Hello, Professor Chen," prompting the middle-aged professor to give a cold, concise nod. "MHM." Although the other party was merely logistical support, Fang Chu sharply sensed a faint aura of killing intent, realizing that despite being a researcher, the man still carried the lingering temperament of someone who had fought on the front lines. Strolling around the lab, Professor Chen proudly recounted a recent event. Recently, in the Abyss Secret Realm, humanity welcomed yet another legendary-ranked demon executioner who broke through to the Crown Realm, successfully slaying an Abyss Lord and displaying earth-shattering combat prowess. Patting Yifan's shoulder with high expectations, Professor Chen continued, "That's why after Yifan awakened the Demon Executioner class, our Heicheng Military Academy placed special emphasis on him, setting up an entire dedicated research team just to help him unlock his maximum potential." Suddenly, Professor Chen turned to look at Fang Chu with a mysterious smile. "Fang Chu, I've already reviewed your file as well." Seeing the talented kid before him, the professor adjusted his glasses and dangled a temptation. "If you like, I can make a special exception to set up a small research team for you too," prompting the male lead to wave his hands and reject the offer instantly. "No thanks, I'll pass." Glancing sideways at Yifan with lingering apprehension, the pragmatic Lord of Death thought to himself that he certainly didn't want to graduate with 20 years of crushing debt hanging over his head. Professor Chen didn't press the matter further, clapping his hands to signal, "No problem at all. Then let's start with the practical combat research first." Stepping down onto the combat arena, the professor reassured the two students. "We've established extremely strict safety measures, so you guys can go all out in combat without needing to worry about any fatal dangers." Pointing toward the weapon rack nearby, he added a reminder. "Additionally, to maximize your combat output, Each of you may freely select 3 pieces of combat gear from that armory. Looking at Yi Fan standing heroically with a glowing blade bow, Fang Chu mentally evaluated that Yi Fan's strength was indeed no joke, as his speed and burst capability heavily countered his own skeleton summoning skills. Seizing the opportunity, the male protagonist decided to activate the system, figuring it was time to use the skill deduction feature to boost his own combat capabilities a bit. Right before his eyes popped a glowing emerald upgrade window with options to upgrade the skeleton summoning, apprentice-rank skeletal flying spear, and apprentice-rank skeletal binding shield. Standing across the arena, Yi Fan whipped off his coat to toss it onto the rack and provoked him. Oh, almost forgot. Walking forward with his specialized weapon, the Yi-named demon guy flexed hard. Recently, I've completely mastered the specialized skill of the blade bow, so even if you summon 20 skeletons, you still won't be my match. Draping his camouflage cloak over his shoulders, Fang Chu merely curved his lips into an indifferent smirk. Heh, is that so? Yet gazing at his newly stat-boosted Necromancer sheet, he thought with supreme confidence. Once these skills finish upgrading, it's anyone's guess who will come out on top. Flicking his fingers lightly, the Lord of Death wore a bewitching smile as he said, I hope you won't let me down. At this point, his attribute sheet fully displayed his basic gear, consisting of a gray-rank apprentice staff and apprentice magic orb. Mass-produced items that nonetheless slightly boosted magic efficiency and reduced incoming damage. Yi Fan assumed a defensive stance, spinning his glowing giant blade bow majestically. As expected of the destined rival I chose, your confidence is truly admirable. Yet the demon assassin's gaze instantly hardened with danger as he added, however, Yi Fan built up momentum to launch into midair, leaping up to deliver a fatal blow onto the arena. The research team's backing for me far exceeds your imagination. Inside the observation room, 2 research assistants gossiped curiously. Who do you think will win? Definitely Yi Fan. You've spent all week interacting with him, so you should know. That guy's combat instinct is the scariest thing I've ever seen. Right then, a deep voice cut into their conversation. Making conclusions so early, aren't you researchers a bit too hasty? Startling Professor Chen into spinning around. Old Lu, what brings you running over here? Teacher Lu, who stood cross-armed beside the big boss with an aloof expression. 2 of my prize students in class are sparring with each other, so naturally a teacher like me has to come watch. And when challenged with, what, does Instructor Lu believe Fang Chu can beat Yi Fan? He firmly affirmed. Exactly. Faced with that confidence, Professor Chen flipped through the file folder in his hands and retorted with a shake of his head. Fang Chu can indeed summon a lot of skeletons, but that doesn't change the fact that he's just a fragile mage with weak physique plus. Professor Chen turned to drop a juicy piece of inside intel. Yesterday, Yi Fan just mastered an insanely overpowered teleportation skill. I guarantee it'll give you a huge surprise, making Teacher Lu raise an eyebrow in curiosity. Oh, back on the arena, Yi Fan lunged forward like a ghost, his glowing blade flashing past Fang Chu by a hair's breadth. Relying on his sharp reflexes, the male lead managed an evasive slide just in time, assessing his opponent internally. Yi Fan's close-quarters combat capability is too strong. I need to widen the distance immediately. Seeing his opponent scrambling backward, Yi Fan smiled arrogantly. Don't think widening the distance means you're safe. He immediately raised his giant blade bow, channeling energy to fire a torrential downpour of blue energy arrows that blanketed the sky and scoured every corner of the arena. Facing that overwhelming onslaught, a flash of cold green light flickered in Fang Chu's eyes as he chanted an incantation, summoning a skull protection barrier that blocked all danger dead in its tracks. Raising his magic staff, a brilliant magic circle lit up beneath Fang Chu's feet to summon his first batch of skeleton warriors into the fray. The newly spawned skeletons instantly clasped their hands before their chests to unleash their signature technique, launching rapid-fire volleys of sharp blue energy beams. Watching the incoming torrent of light beams, Yi Fan tilted his body to dodge while mentally calculating. I need to cut off his skeleton summoning rhythm right now. But a sudden lightning arrow slammed straight into the magic array beneath Fang Chu's feet, making him change expression and cry out. Crap! The summoning array got forcefully interrupted. Ducking low to evade a storm of energy arrows whistling right over his head, the male protagonist breathed a sigh of relief. That was way too close. Immediately afterward, Fang Chu slammed his hand down flat against the ground to trigger another hidden magic array. A long row of imposing skeleton warriors with blazing green eye sockets rumbled up from the earth, completely shielding their master from the upcoming wave of attacks. Standing behind the glass pane in observation, Professor Chen couldn't help marveling in praise. Truly, the younger generation surpasses the old. Today's youngsters are seriously formidable. Pushing up his glasses, he nodded in agreement. With Fang Chu's performance today, even if he loses to Yi Fan, I entirely agree to put him on the seed list, prompting teacher Lu Hu to chuckle dismissively and retort. Old Chen, don't celebrate too early. With a tone of utter confidence, the combat instructor stroked his chin and asserted firmly. This kid Fang Chu has an ice-cold and shrewd temperament. I refuse to believe he hasn't hidden 2 or 3 trump cards up his sleeve. Watching his skeleton minions get hacked down like sugarcane by the opponent, Fang Chu narrowed his eyes in calculation. Looks like I can't afford to hold back anymore. Thought translated to action as he raised his green flaming skull staff high into the air and commanded loudly. Max out all output. Watching the display screen show a skyrocketing count, the female assistant dropped her jaw and shrieked. 30 skeletons, causing her colleague standing beside her to freeze for a solid 5 seconds. This kid only awakened a few days ago. How the hell did he level up his skill speed this freakishly fast? Though surrounded on all sides by a sea of white bone, Yi Fan roared with intense excitement. Awesome! Having this kind of capability is what makes you worthy of being my destined rival. Pulling his camouflage hood up to cover half his face, Fang Chu evaluated him with cautious vigilance. To remain so calm even while tightly surrounded by my skeletons. This guy Yi Fan definitely still has some hidden tricks. Just as predicted, the Yi fellow instantly transformed into a green whirlwind, brandishing his scythe to hack the surrounding skulls to pieces with a flurry of brutal moves. No matter how sturdy those white skeleton warriors were, they couldn't withstand the heat, rapidly shattering and turning into swirling clouds of sand on the ground. Yi Fan's eyes blazed with a green, battle-hungry light as he lunged forward, muttering, "This distance is more than enough to end the match." In the blink of an eye, he closed right in on his target, the surging energy around him acting as though it wanted to swallow the fragile mage whole. He activated his signature ultimate, Shadow Chase, transforming into a shadow that tore through the air and charged straight ahead. The speed of the dash generated an elongated green streak of light, casting an invisible, crushing pressure across the entire arena. Witnessing that scene, Professor Chen sighed and declared, "It's over. Once an assassin successfully closes in, even a god of a mage wouldn't be able to withstand Yi Fan's attack." While teacher Lu Hu silently observed without uttering a single word. With a decisive motion, Yi Fan spun around to deliver his slash, the finishing move known as Vengeful Fierce Strike, right into Fang Chu's center mass. Yet the corners of the fake innocent master's mouth twitched upward into a sly grin as he whispered triumphantly, "The fish has taken the bait, my boy." A gigantic bone shield abruptly erected itself right before him, meeting Yi Fan's lightning-fast slash with a sharp, metallic clang. Struck backward by the tremendous recoil force from the shield, Yi Fan widened his eyes in sheer horror and shouted, "What the hell is this? What kind of skill is this?" Staring through the monitoring screen, Professor Chen jumped in startle and yelled, This is a completely brand new skill of the Necromancer class," leaving his assistant dumbfounded and limp-limbed. He independently deduced a brand new skill on his own. This is way too absurd. Fang Chu slowly backed away, casually dropping a taunt. "My bad. You were a bit stronger than I expected, so I had no choice but to use some tactics." The moment he finished speaking, he loosened his grip to let his skull staff drop freely onto the cold, tiled floor. Watching that bizarre action, Professor Chen broke out in a cold sweat, his face pale as he stammered, "What on earth is this trick?" Teacher Lu Hu broke into a sweat as well, clicking his tongue in appreciation. "This kid! His tactical playstyle is genuinely filthy." Right then, Professor Chen pieced it together and yelled with wide eyes. He actually used optical camouflage to blend directly right into the middle of the skeletons. Amidst the dense maze of white bone, Yi Fan frantically looked around and gnashed his teeth in fury. "Damn it! I completely can't detect where that punk Fang Chu is hiding." Madly swinging his scythe at the minions around him, he roared in frustration, "Fang Chu, if you've got the guts, step out here." However, feeling his stamina rapidly depleting, the demon assassin's eyes burned with a fierce green flame as he gritted his teeth and resolved, "If this drags on any longer, I'm going to get worn down to death. I've got no choice but to use that ultimate move." A massive wave of demonic chi abruptly erupted, shooting straight up into the air and blasting the surrounding skeletons far away. Witnessing that terrifying spectacle, Professor Chen jumped in shock and refused to believe his eyes. How is this possible? At this tier, he's already learned that overpowered skill? prompting the assistant to nod and explain. Exactly. Although its cooldown is extremely long, it possesses absurd burst damage and the ability to exit combat status instantly. Floating midair, Yi Fan's glowing eyes instantly locked onto a corner within the skeleton formation, cheering triumphantly. Found you? It's that one. Brandishing his dual glowing blade hooks to unleash a fatal finishing strike, the demon executioner roared in excitement. Fang Chu, take this attack of mine, sky-splitting strike, pouring every last ounce of remaining strength into the move. Yi Fan ignited the green flames deep within his eyes to execute the decisive blow. A gigantic green fireball carrying destructive force plunged straight down toward the skeletons looking up from below. A skeleton warrior draped in a camouflage cloak broke out in a cold sweat upon realizing death was calling its name specifically. The lightning-fast slam crashed heavily onto the arena floor, generating a terrifying green explosion alongside the name of the technique. Heaven-splitting slash. As the dust and smoke slowly cleared, Yi Fan panted heavily, staring intently at his target lying flat on the ground. The red-haired youth stood triumphantly over his opponent's body, resting his weapon on his shoulder to proudly declare, "You're strong, but I, Yi Fan, have my own pride and absolutely cannot lose." Putting on the airs of a magnanimous victor, he turned his head to instruct, "Hurry up and call the medical team. I don't want to cause any casualties." Yet outside in the observation room, Professor Chen and his team froze, dropping their jaws in stunned silence. Realizing something was terribly off with the atmosphere, Yi Fan broke out in a cold sweat and mumbled, "Their expressions look so weird. Those aren't the looks meant for a victor." He whipped his head around to look down at the ground, going pale as he blurted out. Beneath the cloak, Fang Chu's figure suddenly smoked and dissolved into nothingness, making him realize the bitter truth with a shock. That wasn't Fang Chu. His brain scrambled to piece the situation together with a convoluted deduction. Mirror camouflage plus double camouflage. He didn't disguise himself as a skeleton. He made a skeleton disguise itself as him disguised as a skeleton. Before he could even process the spectacular trick, he shrieked in panic as a pack of skeletons grabbed tightly onto his legs from behind. Oh no. Fang Chu's actual physical body finally appeared leisurely right behind him, flashing a friendly smile. "Yi Fan, thanks for holding back." Realizing he had walked right into a trap, Yi Fan lowered his head in resignation. "I surrender," as the system simultaneously displayed the result. Fang Chu wins. The red-haired youth gritted his teeth and closed his eyes in utter helplessness. Damn it! That final skill consumed way too much. I don't have an ounce of strength left. Completely exhausted, his body pitched forward, only to be caught by an opposing skeleton holding out a helping hand. Though suffering a painful defeat, he maintained his basic etiquette, wheezing out to the male lead, "Thanks." Fang Chu immediately gave a thumbs up and offered a comforting remark dripping with heavy sarcasm. "Don't mention it. Just consider it my pity for the loser." Being carted away on a stretcher, an outraged Yi Fan hollered back, "You bastard! This defeat is just fuel to make me stronger, you just wait. The underdog always rises someday." Forcing Fang Chu to quickly defend himself. "I was just joking, no need to get all worked up over it." The match concluded as Professor Chen stepped forward to offer praise. "Though I hate to admit it, student Fang Chu, your combat capability has far exceeded my expectations," prompting the male lead to reply calmly, "Professor Chen." The bespectacled professor clapped the male lead on the shoulder and delivered a sharp punchline. "With a dirty tactical playstyle like yours, you're bound to become a master tactician in the future," leaving Fang Chu speechless as he thought, "Why do I feel like he isn't actually complimenting me?" Brushing off the comedy, Teacher Lu Hu straightened his face to get down to business. "Fang Chu, that shield spell you used just now, was it a brand new skill you independently deduced?" The male lead calmly confirmed. "Yes, Teacher Lu." Without hiding anything, the male lead immediately summoned the bone shield and bone spear to demonstrate. "I had a bit of an epiphany while practicing skeleton summoning and deduced 2 new skills," proudly adding, "I named them Bone Spear and Bone Shield." Gazing at the 2 distinct masterpieces right before their eyes, both teachers stood stunned, exchanging speechless glances. Teacher Lu Hu excitedly delivered a heavy smack onto his student's back. "Well done, kid. You certainly know how to keep throwing surprises at us." Forcing a wobbling, grimacing Fang Chu to plead, "Teacher, please have mercy on my back." Professor Chen turned to propose to his colleague, "Brother Kingshan, since your place is already fully stocked with professional equipment, why don't we test out Fang Chu's new skills right away?" Prompting Teacher Lu Hu to cheerfully agree on the spot. "No problem, I'll go arrange it right now." Hearing the word test, Fang Chu collapsed to the ground with a shudder and wailed, Teacher, my spiritual power is genuinely bottomed out. I'm afraid I can't test these two skills right now. While the bulky teacher wrapped an arm around his shoulder to comfort him. Oh, small matter, nothing to worry about at all. An entire crate of oversized potions was hauled out before the male lead, who asked blankly, "Hold on, did you bring an entire crate of beer here?" The cheerful teacher replied, "Spot on, just down it straight from the bottle." While the label on the crate clearly read the truth, mental recovery. Experiencing industrial-grade replenishment for the first time, Fang Chu inverted the bottle to chug it dry as radiant green energy bloomed around him, muttering, "This is the first time I've ever seen anyone drink recovery potions like tap water. Man, that's refreshing." Stepping into the testing area, Professor Chen pointed toward the training robot and shouted, "Get ready, we're starting the test right now. The dummy is all set," prompting Fang Chu to nod obediently. Understood. The robot raised both fists with a sinister smile as the proctor's voice echoed. "Just do it like you did in combat class, attack it with your skill," and the cold student replied, "Clear." Without further hesitation, Fang Chu waved his hand to summon his sharp weapon alongside the name of the technique. Bone Spear. Pouring his strength into a powerful throw, he hurled the piercing spear straight into the dummy, generating a blinding explosion of light as the electronic board instantly reported the result. Attack power, 85. Witnessing the impressive score, Professor Chen beamed brightly, scribbling notes rapidly as he praised. High attack power indeed. For a newly awakened student, this level is simply outstanding. And most importantly, this is a skill he created entirely on his own. Seeing the offensive test wrapped up, Teacher Lu Hu stroked his beard to give the next order. "Get ready, next up we'll test the defensive capability of your skill," to which the male lead shrugged and answered lightly, "Sure." Receiving the command, the creepy smiling puppet charged forward at high speed, delivering a 1,000-pound punch straight toward the male lead's face. Faster than lightning, Fang Chu swung the skull shield upward to block the god-awful punch dead in its tracks. Bone Shield. The electronic board instantly calculated and displayed the score. Defense power, 80. Those two glowing scores made Teacher Lu Hu grin from ear to ear, showering his student with praise. Your attack power rivals a storm mage, and your defense is no worse than an earth knight. Overjoyed by discovering such a talent, the teacher unleashed his signature backslapping technique again, nearly knocking the wind out of the male lead. "Fang Chu, you were simply born to be a necromancer." The male lead massaged his aching back with a monkey-eating ginger expression as he pleaded, "Teacher, could you please stop slapping me? People might start thinking taking hits like this is an easy job." Professor Chen stepped in to rescue his pitiful student, pushing up his glasses to propose. "Student Fang Chu, the skills you've deduced are exceptionally brilliant. I suggest you register them at the skill library." Fang Chu rubbed his back and mumbled in curiosity. A skill library. He began rummaging through his memories and system database regarding this luxurious sanctuary. The so-called skill library was a skill collection center established by the Federation, where anyone could trade contribution points to acquire skill. Professor Chen's voice pulled him back to reality alongside a thumb-up gesture. "We have an entire branch of the Federation's skill library right inside this research institute. You can access it whenever you like." The male lead smiled brightly and seized the opportunity. "Then I'll be troubling you, Professor." Standing before massive wooden double doors, Teacher Lu affectionately lectured his prized student. "Once you upload your skills, you can use the contribution points currently in your hands to exchange for whatever skills you need." Fang Chu strode forward confidently. "I understand, thanks Teacher Lu." He extended a gloved hand to gently press against the heavy wooden doors, shoving them open to step into the world of knowledge. However, a quiet darkness greeted him instead, leaving the young man to complain blankly. "Isn't this supposed to be a skill library? Why is it pitch black in here?" The moment the words left his mouth, a system of lights suddenly flickered to life, illuminating a magnificent and antique expanse of knowledge before his eyes. Gazing up at the towering, gold-gleaming bookshelves, the male lead couldn't help marveling in awe. As expected of the Federation's skill library, he walked along the corridors, gently stroking the magical book spines as he muttered with keen interest. "Every skill I could ever want to know can probably be found right here." Bypassing the sightseeing, he approached the central stone pedestal and placed his hand onto a glowing purple energy orb to initiate the process. A flurry of system notification boxes popped up with earth-shattering good news. Successfully registered new skills Bone Spear and Bone Shield. Reward, 200 contribution points. As the developer of these new skills, 50% of all future exchange fees will become your personal income. The young man suffered a heavy shock from the massive payout. I actually get royalties too. Pockets stuffed with a colossal fortune, the male lead's inner greed for hunting down secret toms flared up. It's rare to get access to the skill library. I can't just trade for a few skills and walk away empty-handed. Taking a stroll around, his sharp eyes instantly locked onto a book radiating a vibrant green glow, and he reached out to pull it off the shelf. Skeletal Meditation Method. Holding the glowing mystic manual in his hands, Fang Chu curved his lips into a calculated smirk. Perfect! I'll use these skills as a base to generate even more skill deductions, while the system interface simultaneously displayed his current balance. Soul power available for skill deduction, 100 points. Standing amid the vast space, Fang Chu suddenly received a system prompt. Skill available for upgrade, Skeletal Meditation Method. Consume soul power to upgrade. Without needing much thought, he waved his hand to press the selection button decisively. Yes, instantly, a wave of green halo enveloped his body, prompting him to marvel. Such an intense wave of death energy. At the same time, deep within his sea of consciousness, a skeletal illusion suddenly snapped open its eyes, blazing with a fierce crimson glare. The image of an imposing skeletal king seated upon a throne materialized before him, alongside a system notification of victory. Skeletal Meditation Method successfully upgraded. That bony king slowly extended a mysterious magic book, leaving Fang Chu to murmur in curiosity. This is. Staring at the floating magic book before him, the male protagonist pointed at himself blankly and asked, "For me." Without waiting for his consent, the book automatically sprang open, releasing thousands of sparkling magic characters that fluttered and dove straight into his body. After absorbing all the essence, the image of an imposing skeletal monarch materialized behind Fang Chu alongside the grand technique name, Sovereign Skeletal Meditation Method. Clenching his fist with satisfaction, the male lead muttered to himself that this bit of power wasn't wasted at all as he read the system notification. Sovereign Skeletal Meditation Method, an upgraded version of the Skeletal Meditation Method, increasing meditation speed by 100% compared to the original and empowering all necrometric skills. Not only speeding up level grinding, but also boosting skill intensity, proving that this soul power was truly not wasted. However, he quickly tapped his chin in calculation and realized a harsh truth. No matter how powerful a skill was, it still required a corresponding amount of mental power to execute. And during his previous battle with Yi Fan, his mental power had nearly been completely drained. Strolling through the library, he breathed a sigh of relief and decided to go buy an energy-pumping skill right away, figuring that since he still had plenty of contribution points, he could exchange them for a skill that enhanced mental power. Pausing in front of a bookshelf, he stylishly pointed at his target to check out. "I choose Calm and Collected," accompanied by a fun deduction notification flashing clearly. Fang Chu has consumed 20 contribution points, skill successfully exchanged. He contentedly flipped through the Mystic Manual and reviewed the utility of his newly acquired ultimate. This skill provided a passive trait that boosted the mental power recovery speed of magic casters, and if used actively, it would instantly restore a certain amount of mental power. Greeting a teasing system prompt, he smirked at the high learning difficulty and pressed yes without hesitation. The only drawback of Calm and Collected is its extremely high learning difficulty, but for me, that's not an obstacle at all. Learnable skill material detected. Consume 10 points of soul power to accelerate the comprehension process. As expected, money could move ghosts, as a flurry of magic halos immediately wrapped around his body, alongside a joyful system notification. The Calm and Collected skill has reached the mastery stage. Clenching his hand as power surged through it, he smiled proudly in praise. "Awesome, my mental power recovery speed has clearly increased." Armed with his new skill set, Fang Chu grew overly confident to the point of making a bold claim. "If I had to fight Yi Fan right now, I'd probably have more than enough to drown him in a sea of skeletons." Not stopping there, the newly rich upstart clutched a stack of books as reference materials alongside point deduction notifications for tangle vines, quicksand mud walls, spider webs, and debuff rays, thinking he should just exchange for all these skills first and use them as reference material to upgrade his skills later. The skills were successfully exchanged, and after a wild shopping spree, he suddenly realized the hard truth that no matter how high your martial arts were, going naked meant getting wrecked. So skills alone weren't enough. He needed matching gear worthy of his strength, knowing that a low-tier apprentice could only use gray and white-tier equipment. Poverty breeds thievery, but here he had cash, so the young man immediately swiped his card to gear up. Fang Chu has consumed 40 contribution points, equipment successfully exchanged. Dressed in total market trash, Fang Chu adjusted his brim to transform into a budget mage, though his aura remained off the charts thanks to a series of notifications. Low-tier gray apprentice mage hat, a mass-produced standard mage hat that slightly boosts maximum mental limit. Low-tier gray apprentice necklace, a mass-produced standard necklace that slightly boosts mental recovery speed. Low-tier gray apprentice rings X2, mass-produced standard rings that slightly reduce skill cooldowns. Trash was still trash, but gathering all 4 pieces triggered a glowing high-end set effect on the system. Apprentice Mage 4-piece set effect. Cultivation speed and skill proficiency growth speed plus 10%. Gazing at the upgrade lights swirling around his body, the young man nodded with an affectionate smile to conclude. Not bad, this stuff will help me level up even faster. Standing in the library and reviewing his lengthy stat sheet, Fang Chu praised it with a murmur. This trip yielded a pretty massive harvest. The Federation's skill library is truly extraordinary. Name, Fang Chu. Class, Apprentice rank lower tier Necromancer. Stats, Strength. 1.5 Agility, 1.3 Physique, 1.3 Spirit, 2.5 Status. Soul Separation, Equipment, Apprentice Mage 4-piece set. Skills, Skeletal Meditation Method, Mastered. Skeleton Summoning, Mastered. Bone Spear, Proficient. Bone Shield, Proficient. Calm and collected, Novice. Suddenly his cool skeletal avatar dashed out in a flash, catching the male lead's attention. Breaking out in a cold sweat, Fang Chu clicked his tongue as he realized he almost forgot his minion. Almost forgot my boy. My skeleton avatar needs corresponding skills too. Without stinginess in investing in his own crew, he hauled out 3 crucial secret manuals and tossed them to his disciple along with a deduction notice. Weapon Mastery, Parry, and Roar were absolute must-have skills for his skeleton avatar. Fang Chu has consumed 30 contribution points, skills successfully exchanged. Clutching the final secret manual, the fake tycoon Fang Chu began to sweat upon seeing his wallet bottom out, frantically racking his brain for another sweet gig. The skill library is amazing, but it's definitely not friendly to my contribution points at all. I wonder if I can find another sweet job like being a sparring partner. Just as he stepped out into the area marked with the Demon Hunter Research Team sign, he bumped right into Professor Chen, who asked with curiosity, "How is it? Managed to swing learning any new skills?" Prompting Fang Chu to lift his chin and brag. "Yeah, I hauled in a massive harvest this time." Just as he was feeling proud, an aggrieved roar echoed from behind to interrupt his thoughts. "Fang Chu, I refuse to accept that defeat." A battle-hungry Yi Fan stood on the platform and tossed a recovery potion straight at the male lead with a challenge. "Drink this potion. Earlier I only lost because I didn't understand your tactics. This time I'll beat you at max speed." Making Fang Chu catch the bottle effortlessly and offer a sarcastic smile. "Are you sure you want to challenge me right now? I literally just upgraded my skills, you know." Brushing off the advice, the red-haired youth gritted his teeth and affirmed with blazing eyes. "I, Yi Fan, will never submit to anyone. This time I'll use my full strength to defeat you." Spotting a self-delivered profit opportunity, Teacher Lu chimed in to charge a fee. "This counts as an extra training session, so the student will have to pay me extra contribution points," while Professor Chen shoved the responsibility onto the debtor. "Well, as long as he agrees, after all, he's the one who will have to pay back that point balance later anyway." Refusing to drink it, Fang Chu tossed the bottle back to his opponent with a provocative smile. "Then bring it on. You keep the potion, you might be the one needing it later." Making a furious Yi Fan growl, "You." Driven to boiling rage, the red-haired youth erupted with green flames enveloping his entire body and charged forward with a roar. Fang Chu. The scenery darkened as a green beam of light, carrying an ultimate technique, tore through the air from above with overwhelming killing intent. Apocalyptic strike. Observing from the sidelines, Professor Chen and Teacher Lu broke into a cold sweat as they analyzed the situation. He opened with his ultimate right off the bat. Yi Fan's combat instincts are pretty sharp. A fast and decisive fight is his only chance to win. A tense atmosphere blanketed the room as the teacher muttered with high focus, "I wonder how Fang Chu will counter with his new skills." Contrary to everyone's anxiety, the male protagonist leisurely raised a single finger to the sky as a gigantic green magic circle, filled with glowing runes, instantly lit up beneath his feet. Witnessing the familiar summoning scene, the pretty assistant blurted out in confusion, "Is he still just using skeleton summoning?" But with his seasoned eyes, the bearded Teacher Lu changed expression and broke out in a cold sweat as he yelled, "No, wait." The glowing ring grew increasingly brilliant, revealing a dense swarm of ghostly skeletons that made Teacher Lu gasp in horror at the sheer quantity. Dozens of white bone warriors rumbled up from the earth, forming an imposing pillar that pierced the sky amid the panicked exclamation of the onlooker. This is completely abnormal. Yifan's ultimate slammed heavily against the sturdy wall of skeletons, generating a blinding explosion of green light that scattered rocks and bone fragments everywhere. Amidst the swirling dust across the arena, Professor Chen and Teacher Lu stared in shock as they reassessed the red-haired youth's strength. His power is even greater than before. That punk Yifan actually comprehended and upgraded his skills right during our previous match. Right at that moment, Fang Chu strolled forward casually. Not bad, the destructive power behind this attack was noticeably stronger than before, while keeping his hands tucked casually in his pockets and smiling with hidden meaning. But what a pity my skills have gotten stronger too. Just a tiny bit, making Yifan jump in shock and roar, "Fang Chu!" Before he could finish, the red-haired youth broke out in a cold sweat of terror as he realized the surrounding skeletons were all simultaneously pointing their sharp spear tips right at him. So instead of a heroic duel, the Yi fellow got mercilessly swarmed and gang-beaten by the horde of dry bones, clutching his head in desperate pleas. No, not the face. The match concluded with Yi Fan lying flat on the floor as Professor Chen clutched his forehead and sighed in announcement. Today's training session ends here, while Teacher Lu chimed in with desolation. Well, Yi Fan probably won't be able to train for the next week. Waiting until the victim was hauled away on a stretcher, Professor Chen turned to ask the male lead seriously. "By the way, are you really not planning to set up a Necromancer research group?" To which Fang Chu instantly and decisively refused. "Nope, thanks anyway, Professor." Recalling his sky-shattering secrets, the young man broke out in a cold sweat inwardly. If they researched me and figured out I had a system, that would be unimaginably troublesome. At the same time, in another corner of the skill library, a beautiful girl stepped into the central stone pedestal and noticed an unusual change. Placing her hand onto the magic orb, the girl widened her eyes in shock, asking herself if the new Necromancer skills had genuinely been added to the database. Without hesitation, she swiped her card to check out instantly as a system notification popped up. Su Xinhuan has consumed 20 contribution points. Skill successfully exchanged. Flipping through the pages of the manual, Su Xinhuan read along while struggling to hide her awe. Bone spear, bone shield. I never imagined bone-type magic could be used this way. Whoever developed these skills is definitely an absolute genius. Having scored a treasure, the excited girl hugged the book tightly and hurried off to show off. I have to go tell my dad about this. Around the same time, inside the principal's office, Professor Chen slammed the desk in persistent plea. "Principal, I have to resubmit my application to add Fang Chu to the seed list." And the bearded teacher Lu nodded in endorsement. "That's right, I can even pledge my honor to vouch for him." The white-haired principal calmly sipped his tea and frowned in reprimand. "Old Chen, why are you following along with this nonsense? Even though that Necromancer is doing very well right now, in the future he won't have enough skills to learn and keep up with his tier." Refusing to give up, Professor Chen raised his voice to retort, giving his old friend a physical shock. He's literally already independently deduced 2 Necromancer skills by himself. Hurriedly wiping his mouth, the principal recovered his dignified composure to salvage some face. "Comprehending new skills is nothing special. What matters is the effectiveness of those skills," prompting Teacher Lu to quickly jump in to report. "His skill intensity is." Right then, the office door flew open as Su Xinhuan rushed in to interrupt with an excited tone. "Dad, 2 brand-new Necromancer skills just appeared in the skill library." Hearing his precious daughter say that, the principal winced blankly and asked, "Necromancer skills." To prove it, right in the middle of the room she cast the 2 glowing green skills as an illustration. "I've only briefly studied them, and although I haven't fully mastered them yet, their effectiveness is truly phenomenal." Witnessing the palpable power right before his eyes, the principal froze with sweat beading on his forehead while his daughter curiously asked, "Dad, do you know who developed these skills?" "Yeah, I." Without letting her father finish his sentence, Su Xinhuan's eyes sparkled with starry ambition as she harbored a grand dream. "I want to become that person's student." The principal stared up at the ceiling and let out a helpless sigh, directly pouring a bucket of cold water over his daughter. "Xinhuan, I'm afraid you won't be able to do that," making her pout in confusion. "Why not?" Returning to the practical classroom, the valid reason was explained through the principal's echoing voice. Because he was still just a student. Back in the classroom, Fang Chu was dozing off peacefully when he was jolted awake by a provocative voice. My destined rival, get out here and fight me. He raised his head sleepily and replied in depression, again. Resting his chin on his hand, the male lead sighed as he looked at the clingy pest before him. How many times have you challenged me already? Don't you need to cultivate and raise your strength? Yifan shoved his hands into his coat pockets, smirked, and declared with supreme confidence to the female classmate beside him. Heh, this time it's different, leaving by Xioxian startled and blank. The Yi fellow threw an arm around the girl's shoulder and jutted his chin toward the male lead to issue a challenge. Over the past few days, thanks to Bai Xioxian's help, my strength has skyrocketed. This time I'll definitely defeat you, prompting the girl beside him to flush bright red and panic in clarification. I literally begged you on my knees in public, okay? I only agreed to avoid causing any misunderstandings. Brushing past the comedy act, Fang Chu blinked in curiosity. Helped you raise your strength? Bai Xioxian crossed her arms, puffed out her chest, and bragged proudly. That's right, while sleeping a few days ago, I comprehended a super useful support skill called Ballad. She cheerfully explained its miraculous utility further. It boosts mental power recovery speed while simultaneously enhancing the effectiveness of meditation or training. Seeing his teammates steal the spotlight, Yifan slammed the desk to interrupt with an aggrieved yet determined expression. However, this skill can only be used 3 times a day. I had to spend 2 contribution points a week just to secure this opportunity. Watching the overly enthusiastic debtor, Fang Chu sighed helplessly inwardly. Is this guy planning to spend the rest of his life just grinding to pay off debts? While the red-haired youth slammed the desk to urge him. Hurry up, this time I'm confident I can beat you. Instead of caring about the challenge, the male lead poured his entire attention into that fancy-sounding skill. But if it enhances meditation and training efficiency, I wonder if it works on my skeleton avatar. Action followed thought as he lunged forward, grabbing Bai Xioxian by the shoulders with terrifying enthusiasm. Xioxian, can you sell me your last ballad usage for today? Prompting the blushing, flustered girl to nod obediently. I guess so, while the Yi fellow roared in frustration at being left out. Hey, don't just ghost me. Without bothering to acknowledge the loser, Fang Chu waved his hand to cast a spell and summon his minion to clean house. Skeleton summoning. Leaving a pack of skeletons to surround Yifan, Boss Fang casually assigned the task. You just go play with these bones first. Remember to transfer the contribution points to me when you're done, making the red-haired youth grit his teeth and curse. Bastard, how dare you look down on me like this? Having dealt with the noisy nuisance, the male lead turned back to his female classmate with an eager expression. Please cast Ballad on me, and received an obedient agreement. All right. Bai Xioxian closed her eyes to chant an incantation, as glowing musical ribbons instantly fluttered around the male lead. Ballad. At the same time, within a dark and deadly realm known as the Netherworld, the cool skeletal avatar was sitting cross-legged in meditation. The musical ribbons from the real world actually crossed realms to wrap around the skeletal king, making Fang Chu nod with smug satisfaction as he confirmed on the system interface. Ballad buff excellent. The effect of Ballad actually works on my skeleton avatar. Standing up with a domineering aura, the skeletal monarch looked toward the horde of monsters and muttered in calculation. I can use you guys to test this avatar's skill effects. Simultaneously, his high-end stats popped up clear as day. Apprentice rank higher tier skeleton avatar. Stats, strength, 8 physique, 7 agility, 7 spirit, 6 equipment. Low-tier gray bone spear skills, skeletal armament, brutal strike, proficient charge, proficient weapon mastery, mastered parry, mastered roar, soul power, 50. The stupid mob monsters roared as they charged forward, brandishing spiky weapons to smash down toward the skeletal king's head. With lightning-fast movement, the skeleton avatar drew its weapon to prepare. Bone spear. The steely spear deflected the monster's 1,000-pound blow with skilled parrying technique, while the detailed system notification displayed. Apprentice rank mastered parry. Enter defensive stance to block incoming attacks and reduce taken damage. Success rate and damage reduction depend on physique attributes and skill proficiency. Seizing momentum, the blue flames in the avatar's eye sockets blazed as it prepared to counterattack. Weapon mastery. The skeletal monarch brandished its spear to deliver a fatal blow, smashing the bulky monster deep into the red soil. Without stopping there, the avatar immediately spun around to lock onto another incoming enemy. The monster growled as it swung a giant axe with the intent of splitting the white skeleton in half. Exploiting the opening, the avatar sidestepped slightly and thrust its sharp spear straight through the unlucky monster's skull. Reverse thrust. Standing majestically amidst the battlefield, the Avatar nodded appreciatively upon seeing the buff manifest. Even the system rewards are boosted by 10%. This ballad thing is truly a god-tier skill. Strength plus 0.11, soul power plus 0.55. The battle wasn't over yet, as two chubby executioners brandishing weapons rushed wildly toward the skeletal monarch. With superior agility, the skeleton Avatar dodged extraordinarily and swung its spear to unleash a powerful lightning slash. The spear pierced straight through the enemy's defense line, bringing a continuous downpour of rewards. Strength plus 0.11, soul power plus 0.55. Gazing toward the distant mountains, the skeletal monarch stood tall with its spear planted firmly as countless dark shadows swarmed in. There's still an entire army of the undead left. In that case, igniting all the death chi within its body, the Avatar spread its arms wide to issue a wildly domineering provocation. Bring it on, you scumbags. An overwhelming wave of power violently erupted, forming a blinding white halo that shook the entire dead realm. The wide-area crowd control skill scattered the mobs in panic alongside a detailed system notification. Apprentice rank mastered Roar. Roar with imposing momentum to temporarily boost physique and agility attributes. Duration and boost scale depend on strength attributes and skill proficiency. Burning with fierce momentum, the Avatar turned into a genuine slaughter machine, charging straight into the enemy ranks and mowing them down like grass. Strength plus 0.11, soul power plus 0.55. Fighting harder by the minute, the green flames burned as high as a torch, while the skeletal monarch threw its head back to roar. I can still become even stronger. Amidst the frenzy of slaughter, the Avatar abruptly halted, raising its blazing eyes to gaze at the cracking red sky. The sky fractured wide open, revealing a terrifying anomaly that made even the monarch drop its jaw in its skeletal mouth. What the hell is this? From the spatial rift, a gigantic bone greatsword carrying dazzling blue light plunged straight down toward the earth. The silhouette of a skeletal angel with evil wings ruled the skies, crushing everything around it and making the skeleton Avatar break out in a cold sweat of terror. A skeletal angel? A boss is actually dropping straight into the novice zone. The skeletal angel swooped down from the sky, brandishing its gigantic greatsword to slash straight toward the skeleton Avatar. The greatsword slammed hard into the ground as the Avatar sidestepped to dodge. It ducked behind a boulder as darkness constantly converged around its body. If I take that hit head-on, I'm definitely dead. Gazing at the giant greatsword planted in the ground, the skeleton Avatar sprang up into a leap. If defense is completely useless, then I'll take the offensive. The Avatar's eyes blazed with intense blue light as it activated Roar while channeling power into its bone spear, charging straight up into midair. Eat this. The skeleton Avatar roared, using an armor-piercing stance to thrust hard into the skeletal angel's shoulder. A green energy symbol flashed, Brutal Strike. Activating Brutal Strike, the Avatar continued roaring as it repeatedly brandished its spear to attack the skeletal angel with powerful blows. Facing the continuous string of attacks, the skeletal angel's massive body was pushed backward, leaving the skeleton Avatar to watch warily. What's it planning to do next? The skeletal angel abruptly raised its massive skeletal hand and slammed it down hard against the ground, startling the skeleton Avatar with its decisiveness. Immediately afterward, the skeletal angel swung its greatsword to slash straight at the Avatar. The Avatar instantly activated Parry, using its weapon to block the greatsword, but the terrifying force from the collision made it slide a long distance across the stone floor. A gigantic explosion of blue energy erupted from the ground. The skeletal angel slowly strode toward the recovering Avatar, which thought inwardly, "Luckily, I broke one of its arms earlier, otherwise that last hit would have shattered all my bones." At the same time, the skeletal angel's weak point was exposed. On its broken skeletal arm, a blue flame was still burning fiercely. The skeletal angel raised its greatsword with its remaining arm as the cautious Avatar wondered, "What is it doing?" The skeletal angel began spinning at an extreme speed, creating a gigantic green whirlwind. The Avatar watched the scene in panic. Oh no, the skeletal angel kept spinning, generating a terrifying whirlwind of green energy. Witnessing a centrifugal force strong enough to crush a mountain, the skeleton Avatar instantly understood. It's utilizing the centrifugal force of its spinning motion to compensate for the lost power of its arm. With a single spin, the mountain ahead was crushed to pieces as a crosshair target appeared, and the green whirlwind charged straight toward the Avatar. Furthermore, while spinning, it completely has no way of aiming precisely at its weak spot. Cornered against the sheer cliffside with nowhere left to run backward, the skeleton avatar couldn't help wondering, where on earth do these bones get such terrifying combat desire? Realizing it had reached a dead end, the avatar watched the incoming sword wind and gripped its bone staff tightly. No other choice, I have to risk my life. The fierce green sword wind scoured the earth, making the skeleton avatar evaluate its crushing power. Just the blade pressure alone is enough to scrape away bones and tear flesh. Right then, the avatar spotted a gap. Charge! It instantly lunged forward, amidst a surge of blue energy, to deliver a strike straight into the skeletal angel's leg. Crack! The giant skeletal leg instantly shattered. The skeleton avatar mocked. With a body that big and you've still got osteoporosis, go back and take some calcium supplements. The skeletal angel's chest opened up, revealing a blue soul core pulsing within. The avatar instantly recognized. The soul core is exposed. This is the best opportunity. It immediately hurled multiple bone spears toward the exposed soul core. The skeletal angel lowered its head in horror at the incoming attack, instantly folding its giant wings to use them as a shield against the bone spears. Afterwards, the skeletal angel flapped its wings powerfully to soar straight up into the sky, prompting the skeleton avatar to realize, I knew it. Those wings couldn't just be for show. The skeletal angel raised its greatsword high, as a dazzling, glowing orb of energy began to form. Standing firm, the skeleton avatar prepared for battle. Too bad my system isn't for show either. A system notification popped up, conducting deductive fusion between spider web and skeletal armament skills. A system chime rang out. Deduction successful. New skill, bone shackles, apprentice rank, proficient proficiency. Can condense death energy into sturdy bone chains to bind enemies. Binding strength, duration, and casting range depend on spirit attributes and skill proficiency. The skeleton avatar smiled as a blue bone shackles icon appeared in its hand. Very nice, just as I deduced. Deduction skills can fuse traits from other skill systems to create more powerful necromancer skills. The skeletal angel raised its greatsword high, preparing to deliver a descending blow from the sky, while the skeleton avatar pointed 2 fingers forward. Love flying in the air so much, huh? Suddenly, gigantic blue chains burst forth from the earth, wrapping tightly around the skeletal angel. The skeleton avatar gripped the glowing chains tightly, pulling them taut with all its might. Bone shackles, get down here. Pulled forcefully by the heavy chains, the skeletal angel lost its balance and crashed straight down onto the ground. Bound tightly by the heavy chains, the skeletal angel struggled frantically while the skeleton avatar coldly remarked, Don't bother struggling. The more you struggle, the more excited I get. It stood straight, gripping its staff tightly as blue energy burned fiercely, and a massive wave of power descended. The skeleton avatar delivered the finishing blow to the skeletal angel, sending a terrifying pillar of energy straight down into the earth, and stood atop a boulder holding the skeletal angel's blue soul flame. I gladly accept. The blue soul flame was instantly sucked into the glowing gem, embedded in the avatar's armor. The system interface popped up as soul power increased by 100 points, leaving the skeleton avatar in shock. It actually increased soul power by this much, but he quickly noticed something strange. Why is my body still not growing? A new system notification appeared. Basic attributes have reached the racial limit. Cannot continue increasing attributes. The skeleton avatar instantly understood. No wonder I can't keep boosting my stats. Raising his head to look at the vast and desolate red sky, he thought, what on earth is up there beyond that sky? I want to see it. A racial evolution system interface appeared. Current race, apprentice rank skeleton. Evolution option, black iron rank skeleton warrior. Estimated consumption, 100 points of soul power. The skeleton avatar immediately pressed agree. A powerful swirling wave of black energy enveloped his entire body. My path of evolution officially begins right here. The skeleton avatar's face was instantly swallowed by fierce blue and black flame. The path of slaughter drove the evolution process forward as the skeleton avatar roared. Evolution successful. Successfully evolved into a bone warrior. After evolution, basic attributes including strength, physique, agility, and spirit all increased by 30 points. At the same time, the skeleton avatar unlocked a new racial trait, Bone Monarch. This trait granted a special effect that increased damage dealt to skeletons, while reducing incoming damage from them. The skeleton avatar immediately realized, this trait is perfect for farming levels insanely fast in the netherworld. Right nearby, a low-tier skeleton was sneaking closer. The avatar stood still, letting the tiny skeleton approach. The low-tier skeleton swung its hand to strike the avatar's head, but the blow barely produced any effect at all. The skeleton avatar confirmed its terrifying damage reduction capability. Looks like from now on I don't even need to defend against weak skeletons. A new system notification appeared, allowing skeletal armament to be upgraded following the evolution. The avatar immediately selected yes, as green energy flooded the air, and the equipment upgrade process began. The system confirmed the upgrade was complete, unlocked General White Tier Bone Armor. Bone armor immediately fused with the body. The avatar clearly felt its strength, and defensive power increased substantially. Once stats and gear were both upgraded, the skeleton avatar turned its glowing blue eyes toward the target and said, "Sorry about this." It stepped forward to use that pitiful skeleton as a training dummy. The skeleton avatar unleashed a powerful punch, sending a shockwave shooting straight forward. The weak skeleton clutched its head in panic, completely clueless about what was happening. Boom, an explosion erupted, completely crushing the surrounding skeletons. The avatar walked straight through the wreckage, evaluating as it moved. Combining martial arts with bone armor certainly increases damage dealt to skeletons by a lot. After receiving a small amount of strength attribute and soul power, the avatar quickly realized, these low-tier mobs no longer give me significant growth. Gazing out across the desolate land ahead, the skeleton avatar made up its mind. I need to head deeper into the netherworld. The blue flames flashed brightly in the darkness as the skeleton avatar began marching toward higher-level areas. Meanwhile, Fang Chu realized that the battle between his avatar and the boss had taken up way too much time while he was meditating. He opened his eyes and panted heavily. Bai Xiaoxian hurried over to support him as he wobbled. "Were you injured during meditation?" Fang Chu quickly figured it out. The injuries my avatar sustained during the boss fight actually transmitted back to my physical body. He told himself to be more careful next time and raised a hand to reassure Bai Xiaoxian. "I'm fine." Right at that moment, Yi Fan shouted loudly, "Fang Chu!" He complained that the summoned skeletons could no longer hold him back. The red-haired youth instantly erupted with green energy, shattering his bindings and charging forward. "Fight a fair match with me." Fang Chu immediately used the bone shackles skill, and bone chains appeared to bind his opponent tightly. Bound tightly by the magical chains, Yi Fan groaned in agony. He immediately protested. "This match isn't fair. You used a skill I've never seen before." Fang Chu calmly replied, "Come back whenever you've stacked enough contribution points." The onlookers started whispering curiously. Could Fang Chu have independently developed the bone shackles skill? Meanwhile, a bound Yi Fan could only cry out for help from the crowd. Fang Chu walked down the stairs alone as dusk settled. Realizing today was Friday, Fang Chu reflected on the past few days, nodding that he had been so busy beefing up his strength that he hadn't had any time to rest. It's time to go home. He walked toward the resource exchange building. Here, Fang Chu exchanged 10 contribution points for 100,000 Lixia currency units. The receptionist reminded him that contribution points were extremely hard to earn, but Fang Chu insisted firmly. "I need the money urgently right now." The receptionist handed him a suitcase stuffed with cash. "If you need to exchange again next time, you can contact me." Clutching the suitcase of money, Fang Chu thought of the kids back home. This money will definitely make the kids' lives a bit better. Fang Chu returned to Cloud Orphanage, where the children were happily playing in the courtyard. Sister Ruru stood watching the energetic kids, wondering inwardly how many of them would successfully awaken their abilities in the future. Right before Fang Chu called out to her, "Sister Raugu." Fang Chu smiled as he walked over, carrying bags full of food. The children instantly rushed over with joy. "Big brother Fang Chu, are there tasty treats?" Fang Chu reassured them with a smile. "Enough for everyone, don't worry." Sister Raugu asked about the results of Fang Chu's awakening test. Fang Chu answered honestly, "I awakened as a necromancer." Sister Raugu comforted him gently. "As long as the awakening is successful, that's what matters. The class doesn't matter." Hearing the conversation nearby, one child said in fear, "Necromancer sounds so scary," while another cheered. "Skeletons sound cool, though." To cheer the kids up, Fang Chu summoned 2 small, weak skeletons. The children immediately started playing excitedly, even using a skull as a ball to toss back and forth. Afterwards, Fang Chu handed the suitcase to Sister Raugu. "Give this to the director." But right at that moment, Fang Chu and Sister Raugu simultaneously sensed an unusual presence. A shady-looking man wearing a gold chain walked up with a sneer. "Am I interrupting anything?" Outside Cloud Orphanage, a group of shady thugs had gathered. Anyone could tell they meant trouble. Sister Raugu stepped forward. "Why are you guys here so early? You clearly said it would be a few days." The thug bluntly shoved Sister Raugu to the ground. "Nobody is allowed to delay Tiger Claw Gang's debt payments." Standing over her, he roared angrily, Today is the final deadline. If you don't pay up right now, the orphanage land used as collateral belongs to our gang." The thug laughed out loud. A little girl quietly ran over to Sister Raugu's side. Suddenly, the little girl lunged straight at the thug. "I'm the world's #1 troublemaker. I'll protect Sister Raugu." The thug got angry and moved to kick the little girl as Sister Raugu panicked and screamed, "Zink sing." But before his foot could touch the child, Fang Chu's skeleton avatar suddenly rushed forward to block him. The thug backed away in panic, unable to believe his kick had been intercepted by a summoned skeleton. Fang Chu walked over, patting the little girl's head to comfort her before saying coldly, "Apologize to the kid right now. Otherwise, you guys will face the consequences." A lackey whispered into the boss's ear, "Boss, this guy is just a necromancer." A ferocious-looking martial artist named Lu instantly flared his aura, throwing a punch that crushed the skeleton avatar in a single blow. "Trash! Just a garbage class and you're trying to act tough." Fang Chu didn't even blink, looking calmly at his opponent. "Is this guy a professional?" Walking beside Sister Raugu, Fang Chu asked, "Who are these people?" Sister Raugu explained that they belonged to the Tiger Claw Training Equipment Company, who originally came under the guise of selling training gear for the kids. In a flashback, the children were shown using training equipment, as Sister Raugu recounted how she and the director had to borrow money to buy the gear early because they didn't want the kids to fall behind. But later they realized the company's entire business model was just a front for an illegal high-interest loan shark ring. Compound interest made the debt balloon until it became impossible to pay off, and Sister Raugu bit her lip anxiously. Fang Chu instantly flew into a rage. "Why did you hide such a big thing from me?" The debt collector stepped forward and pointed straight at Fang Chu. "Kid, don't meddle in adult business. A poor kid like you surely can't just casually pull out 100,000 Lishia currency." Before he could finish speaking, Fang Chu hurled the suitcase full of money right into his face. "Catch!" The thug scrambled to catch the suitcase midair. Fang Chu stepped forward. "This is 100,000. Take the money and get lost." Sister Raugu was completely dumbfounded, having no idea where Fang Chu got such a huge sum of money. The thug opened the suitcase to inspect it. "Real money?" He immediately called his boss over to confirm. "Boss, look at this." The boss tossed the suitcase straight down onto the ground. "Shut up, all of you." He gnashed his teeth and confessed, "My boss wants this exact piece of orphanage land. 100,000 is just pocket change." He pointed his cane straight at Fang Chu, who simply scoffed. "The debt is fully paid. What else do you want?" The boss held up 5 fingers in front of Fang Chu. "Delayed payment increased the total amount to 500,000. Sister Raugu panicked. 500,000! But Fang Chu remained calm, quickly realizing these people never intended to accept the money in the first place. They just wanted to pick a fight. The boss admitted it flat out. "So what if we did? Why do you think a bunch of orphans deserve to occupy land in such a prime location?" The Tiger Claw gang members swarmed into the orphanage grounds together, weapons in hand, preparing for a forced takeover of the orphanage land. Fang Chu merely smiled indifferently. "Want to bully others with sheer numbers?" He casually summoned a group of skeletons. Gloomy Death Chi instantly blanketed the courtyard, as the blonde thug started breaking out in a cold sweat. A squad of armored skeleton warriors materialized in front of Fang Chu. Behind him, a gigantic skeletal warrior stood towering like a mountain as Fang Chu spoke calmly. "Face the consequences." A skeleton stepped right up to the blonde thug, startling him. The blonde thug still tried to act tough. "Necromancer is the weakest class. Anyone can crush a skeleton summoned by a newbie." The thugs immediately barged into the orphanage grounds, shouting as they charged. "Get out of the way, brats scram." A little girl curled up in terror on the ground. "Save me." Fang Chu finally lost patience as dark chi flared around his body. "Spread out." The thugs laughed out loud, thinking this would be an easy win. They blindly threw themselves into the skeleton formation, as one thug swung a spiked club with all his might against a skeleton warrior. But the skeleton warrior's eye sockets merely flared with green flames as it took 0 damage. Right afterwards, the skeleton warrior swung its giant blade, swish, and the thug was sent flying like a torn doll. Blood splattered everywhere as the thug screamed in agony when his hand was sliced off, completely terrified by the skeleton's monstrous power. While a skeleton warrior even gently used its hand to cover a child's eyes so she wouldn't have to see the bloody spectacle. Observing from outside, the club-wielding thug couldn't comprehend it. He's just a student. Why are his summoned skeletons this strong? Assuming necromancers had fragile bodies and couldn't handle close combat, he lunged forward, unleashing an all-out strike with the intent of crushing Fang Chu's bones. Sister Raugu screamed in panic. "Fang Chu, get out of the way!" but Fang Chu didn't even bother moving. Boom, the blow landed with a massive explosion, but the entire attack was blocked dead by a transparent bone shield. The thug widened his eyes. No way! His strongest attack hadn't even left a single scratch. Fang Chu didn't stop, raising his hand. Bone shackles! Magical green chains instantly appeared, binding the thug midair. Fang Chu gave a hard pull, slamming the thug face first straight into the ground. He coughed up blood as it spilled from his mouth, finally understanding that the student before him was completely abnormal. Bound tightly by the bone shackles, the thug still thrashed wildly on the ground. "I'll kill you." Before he could finish his sentence, two gigantic skeleton avatars appeared behind him, locking two massive saw blades tightly around his neck. Standing atop his opponent with glowing blue eyes and continuously radiating dark chi, Fang Chu delivered a cold ultimatum: kneel and apologize, or else.